Hello and welcome to Over the Fourth Wall. I'm Sarah. I'm a longtime writer with my bachelor's in English. I'm currently unpublished, but I will be launching the first book of my dark fantasy series as soon as I'm out of editing hell.
And I'm Jack. I'm a longtime writer and developmental editor with a bachelor's in neuroscience. My debut novel was Where the Lightning Goes, which you can find a link to below.
And I'm Jess. I am on a major writing hiatus. I've been learning all kinds of cybersecurity stuff, and I've just been busy. But through this podcast and finishing up a college program, I'm really hoping that I'm poised to get right back into it.
Here in this series, we exclusively review the works of indie authors, and today we will cover Children of Strife, The Arsonist by Tyler Kirk. By way of reminder before we start, if you are the author or a friend or fan of this author, we do not recommend you watch this video. This will be an in-depth critique of the good and bad of this book, and it is intended to give potential readers a full view of the piece and help educate writers working on their own novels as well. As always, we will be covering 4 major areas, which you can find time-stamped below if you would like to jump forward. The first is judging the book by its cover, where we will give our impressions of the blurb and cover art blind. Next, we'll move on to the hook, which will focus on the first chapter, how it's doing getting us into the book, whether it matches the genre, and whether or not we would keep reading on our own. After that, we'll get into the bulk of our discussion with the book, where we'll cover plot, character arcs, and other details of the overall execution. And finally, we'll end on, not with a bang, but with a where we'll discuss the ending. If at any time this book seems interesting to you, we do encourage you to pause and read it, regardless of our experiences. Please do not review this author or this book without purchasing and reading it yourself. And of course, please do remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons. If you would like to submit an unpublished first chapter or request a critical review of your own work, please check the description below for our email inbox.
Okay, so the cover art. I like it. I think it's colorful. Makes me feel YA-ish. I am not sure what the genre is based off of it, but it does catch the eye.
Yeah, I think it's fairly strong cover art. Again, and this is something that happens very frequently, is I did notice that it's slightly off-centered as far as the titling and everything goes, just because it didn't account for the spine. But it's not so egregious in this case because it does align well, at least with the art, and so it's not super noticeable.
I think that the title was supposed to align with the bottom of his face because it is pretty much in the center.
Yeah.
Something worth noting, though, is that the formatting of the book at large, if you look at the spine, then the name, the title, and the author's name are flipped. In every other book, the top of the word is facing the cover. So sitting on a shelf, this would look backwards with all other books.
Yeah, it feels intentional to me that I feel like they intentionally didn't include the spine in the alignment of things, because on the back as well, it's like if you ignore the spine, it's aligned pretty well, you know?
It's cut off to the left, though.
Yeah.
If you'll notice.
Yeah, it's more bothersome on the back because part of the design gets cut off.
Yeah, it is a little bit of formatting error for sure, because you can see it on the spine as well. It's just slightly off kilter to the left. So it's just a little bit more polish. Order the proof copy, take note of these things, adjust, order another proof copy, and then just make sure that these things are clean. Because you're right, it's not like so egregious, but on the back it is pretty rough that it's cut off.
The cover art does not speak to me personally. It feels like a little like unrefined maybe, but I think that of some of the ones that we have ordered so far, this one strikes me as the most polished.
Yeah, I'm not in love with it. I'm not offended by it. If I were in upper middle school, I would have loved this cover. And I don't know what that means for its genre or target audience, but upper middle school me would have liked it.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the question, is who is, what is the genre, what is the target audience? Because I think that's going to give us the answer to how effective the cover art actually is.
Well, let's find out.
The title, Children of Strife, The Arsonist. For me, that title doesn't really do anything. Tells me we're probably going to have some arsony in here, and that Children of Strife with a subtitle, it's probably a series. But again, I still don't know genre from this.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of expect, just kind of looking at it, I'm expecting it to be modern in some respect. And I expect it to be fairly dark, actually, would be my two impressions of it. But yeah, I can't really tell a whole lot else. Children of Strife does suggest to me that there's a series behind this. So if this were a standalone, that would kind of throw me off, I think. Because it seems like Children of Strife would be the series and the Arsonist would be this particular book, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on the cover before we go to the back? And I could read that.
No.
Send it.
Okay. In the realms of light, a dark rot spreads beneath a veneer of beauty. The Arsonist, masked, elusive, and feared, leaves a trail of destruction in his wake. To some he is a menace, to others a shadow of salvation. As fiends ravage the land and ancient powers stir, the fates of 4 souls become inextricably bound to his. Rice, Lila, Thaniel, and Briggan will each grapple with their own demons, unaware that their paths are destined to cross in the most unexpected of ways. In this grim world where nothing is what it seems, survival is uncertain, and the line between ally and enemy is ever shifting.
So that's not bad. It tells me that it's going to be like a bunch of different characters inter-shifting with each other without necessarily having a clear, singular plot at the beginning. But also, it's so vague in what's happening that I still don't have an idea of the book. Their own demons, paths cross, unexpected ways. Nothing is what it seems. Like, I don't have any details about what the world actually is, or what the characters are, or what they're facing, or why the Arsonist is possibly salvation and possibly a menace.
Yeah, it's far too vague for me. You do get like in the realms of light, which I think means that we're doing like a fantasy probably. That's the main thing.
Fantasy or dystopian.
But yeah, also the alignment of the text is not good.
Yeah, and we'll anybody who wants to see it, I'll include images on the screen there for you of the actual book. But this is a pretty common problem with print on demand, again, because I don't think a lot of authors do order-proof copies, so they're not necessarily seeing what the books look like when they go out. Highly recommend doing that. I know it's, a little bit of money, but you don't want something going out that looks so unpolished, especially this is a debut novel. This really should, because we're starting our career, we're trying to establish ourselves. We really want this to come across as very polished because people are going to start judging you off of this work. This is your first product. So it really does say a lot if it's coming out looking really off kilter and everything.
And something for those of you who haven't messed with self-publishing and such before, you can always tell, not always, but pretty commonly, when authors just upload files into wherever they're printing off of, wherever they're selling their book, without testing it out themselves, and then let whatever is publishing their book do the formatting for them based off of the barcode, because the barcode is required to be in a white box. And for a lot of these places, they will offer to put a white box on your cover for you so that you can have the barcode in, because most people don't think to just have that white box inserted onto their art when they get the files originally, when they do the art. And you can see in this on the back of the book where it just covers part of his, what do you call that, outline of the box, little designs. And that's something that obviously wasn't intended, but was just stuck on by whatever AI model put the white box in there. And that tends to be a pretty clear indicator that the author did not format this themselves. They let the system do it.
And that's always a mistake, because the systems aren't very good. Never trust the robots.
Or at least check,
Yeah.
Do those print copies.
On a slightly different note, I think it's interesting and maybe like a little potential to be cute that he has the little author section on the back of the book, especially since I have the soft cover, and so you don't have like the option with the hardcover you would have to put it like on the back flap or whatever. But it is weird that you guys mentioned that this is his debut novel, and it starts with Tyler Kirk is an accomplished writer and author.
I don't know which novel it is.
It just says he has recently achieved a significant milestone with the publication of his first book.
Yeah, it seems a little
I assume.
contradictory.
So we assume this is his first book, but maybe it's... And maybe he's an accomplished writer in another field. Maybe he publishes in medical journals or something. I don't know.
Oh, that could be.
But there is a prologue and a first chapter, if we want to go ahead and read the prologue.
Really quickly on the back, because I did want to give my impressions of it as well. You guys, it is kind of interesting to me, though, because reading the back, my mind does immediately then go to fantasy, dark fantasy, potentially dystopian. Fantasy is what it said to me, which is bad in some respects because that isn't what we're given by the cover at all. So we're being told potentially that the genre of this book is fantasy, but there's nothing really that screams fantasy about it on the cover. Dark fantasy has a little bit of leeway that way, so I'm not going to knock it necessarily for that, but I do think that that is something to take into account, and that's all.
Okay. So read the prologue and then talk about it and then read the first chapter.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Okay. Well.
So it's got kind of Witcher vibes. Not fantastic scene setting. I know that there is a board with papers for bounties, and I know that at least it doesn't seem odd to have horses, but whether I'm in an old American Western town or whether I'm in a town full of pueblos, I don't know. I don't know how large or small it is. We are apparently hungry, and we don't know if we'll be able to afford food for us or our horse, which eats a lot, but not so hungry that we will stoop low enough to take farm work. So that's something. This just seems like a setup for what happens next.
It doesn't seem like a prologue.
Doesn't seem like a prologue. It seems like backstory. Yeah, just stuff that would happen before the inciting incident.
Yeah. This could have easily just been the first couple pages of chapter 1. And I have a suspicion that when we read chapter 1, we'll be like, yep.
I mean, this is, I would say, a very ineffective prologue because this would actively turn me off. Partially, I'm so much harder, I think, on anything to do with fantasy just because it's the genre that I love the most, and so it's the one I get the most offended by. First of all, unless you want this to be very on the nose, naming a place Yokelshire is stupid. Come on. So that aside, the writing comes across as very amateur. Partially, I just hate the names. Yeah, the dialogue.
Dialogue is just exposition. It's just plot points after plot points.
Yeah.
I also cannot begin to describe how much I hated him being like, what did they look like? And the farmer being like, oh yeah, my farmhand's this tall.
See, for me, when it was like, what did they look like? And he went, he was this tall, and he puts his hand under his chin. I didn't immediately clock from that, you're talking about your farmhand. Maybe what took them was that tall. So that didn't seem like a descriptor that would automatically be like, here is who is missing.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how he jumped to that conclusion. Lots of things are that tall.
But it was also like, he said their claws and fangs were already dug deep into him before I could even react. And then the people that grabbed him, not the farmhand, the people that grabbed him, he says, and then the farmer says, it's those creatures I keep hearing about. And I just like it, the exchange didn't flow well or make sense to me.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, everything in this kind of screams amateur. One thing, and this is going to sound really nitpicky, but it's just one of those, like, you can judge. The reason why we look at the first chapter and prologue first is because you can tell so much. And if you've heard a lot of our reviews already, you know this. We're very good at judging what's to come based on what we're getting now. There isn't even a consistency in the line spacing. Do you guys see that?
Yeah.
Like there's
and the lines are very squished together. This is not well formatted.
No, it's poorly formatted. It's very poorly formatted. This just had no attention put to it at all. And there are places where it's like 1.5, 1.25, I'm not sure, spacing. And then there are places where it's strictly 1 and everything looks much more squished together. Either case is fine, but you got to pick
How do
one.
you
And so it
even-
just gives this weird...
I had not noticed that, but how do you even do that? That seems like something you couldn't do on accident.
I know. And that's why I'm like, this is particularly amateur, because how
So,
do you do that on
How
accident?
you end up doing that is, so that part is on purpose, and that is him formatting for the book. Because what you do, or you're a bad formatter, it does it automatically, but it's a bad one. And what it is you have a setting where it says, I want all of this to fit on this page. And instead of having a hanging line, which in general, for that hanging line, then you're going to adjust the entire spacing of the chapter, or you will erase some words so that formatting doesn't do that. You will adjust very lightly and accordingly. But he made it so that the words squish together so you don't have any extras on that next page, and so that everything fits within that paragraph format that he wants. And it's done within the chapter. And so you can see the differences next to each other, which shouldn't be the case. It should be all together. And then you go on to the next thing. And because there's space between them, then you're not comparing them. This is wishy-washy back and forth.
Well, and why this matters to people, just so you're aware, is you're already in a space. Indie publishing is already a space where readers are going to be uncertain about the product, because there are a lot of products that are put out there that are not well made. And one of the reasons why this matters is because somebody is going to pick this up, take a look at the cover. They're going to see that these things are offset, and they're going to judge the quality of the work based on the quality of the formatting and the finishing. And then they open this up, and you can tell this stuff. You can look at it on the page and just see that something is broken here. And so that's going to turn
Even
off.
if you can't put it into words, it feels odd. The same way that, like, whenever I saw the spine, I didn't understand immediately why it felt off until I glanced over at my shelf and saw all of the other titles facing the opposite direction. Like, even if you don't realize that you have picked up on something, you pick up on it. And it does just feel like the author doesn't expect people to buy the physical copy. I will say I like the little drawing above the prologue, and it's in chapter 1 too, but there are little drawings above the title, the chapter headings, and they're cute.
I don't think they're supposed to be cute.
I'm going to go ahead and guess, because it's a mask both above chapter 1 and above the prologue, that assuming chapter 1 is in the Arsonist point of view, that they're going to be point of view markers.
That's fair. I flipped forward to chapter 2 already and just looked, and yes, there's a different marker there. So you're correct in your assumption. Speaking of cute, or what's not cute, I am already sick of hearing about the arsonist's red eyes. 100% sick of it. Looking down a little bit is not going to draw anyone's attention away from the fact that your eyes are glowing red, but also glowing red eyes just instantly feels so edgelord it hurts my body a little bit. You don't have to avoid it, but you also can't have this thing where we're going to pretend other people don't notice, because they're looking right at you.
See, and that's where I'm fine with it. I don't mind glowing red eyes. I even like them, honestly. But I need to know how common these things are to know whether or not people are going to have attention drawn to them. Like, you're wearing a full mask in the middle of the day. We saw our wanted poster. It says the Arsonist. I don't know if the mask is drawn. I don't know if anything is drawn, or if it just says the Arsonist and a bounty, because that's how not well that bounty poster was described. Is someone wearing a mask as off-putting as don't approach this person as in real life? Or do people just wear masks sometimes and you move on with your life? Do people just have glowing eyes? Or when people have glowing eyes, like, do some mages have it? Do some people who underwent rituals have it? Or is it always a monster? These are big indicators that vary across fantasy and paranormal, because I'm still not sure which one this is. I think it could be paranormal if there are only random monsters in it. But I don't know, and I should know based off of how someone else is reacting to him. Because this guy's like, oh, your glowing red eyes are a little weird as I'm trying to hire you. But is that because he just went face to face with a monster that had red eyes? And that's why he's okay with it, because he knows that it's just, you're clearly not that monster? Or is it all glowing eyes? Is it all red eyes? those are important world building and magic building indicators that are just missing from this.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think you're giving a little bit too much of the benefit of the doubt because you're a very experienced reader. I'm a very experienced reader. Jess is a very experienced reader. And the pairing of this exposition that the creatures that took the farmhand were pale and red-eyed, and then the masked man's immediate attempt to hide the fact that he has glowing red eyes already tells you...
Midway through a conversation.
Yes.
Midway through a conversation, yes. Yes, and that's part of the reason why it's annoying to me, because I'm like, the first thing you're going to notice about somebody is their eyes.
Especially when that's all...
Especially when everything else is covered.
Yeah, that's all you get. He's wearing a mask. He's got red eyes.
You're going to look at the eyes.
Yeah, that exchange bothered me a lot, too. I mean... Yeah.
Loved because the masked man attempted to look down behind his mask to help conceal his faintly glowing red eyes while listening to the farmer. And then the farmer asks him a question and he answers. And directly after his answer, this is just one section of dialogue and then another section of dialogue. And following that second section where the arsonist answers, he said as his red eyes gazed into the worried eyes of the farmer in the straw hat.
Yeah.
So he attempted to hide his eyes for exactly 2 seconds before looking directly into the eyes of the other man.
Yeah.
And then we get a head hop.
Yep.
A chill shot down the spine of the farmer. He was too desperate and scared to question the masked man's glowing eyes, which is also annoying because this is very clearly supposed to be a limited point of view. So dock points for that. But also... just eyes. There are probably like a dozen.
I was fine with eyes. Masked got me.
Masked also. But eyes showed up like 12 times in this chapter. Like, surely there is another word we could use.
Oh no, don't go down that road. I don't need him using like orbs and shit.
Oh, I remember when I used orbs. Good times.
I've never used orbs. I've always supplemented it with gaze or other things.
You didn't know how bad it could get.
I was 14 the last time I used orbs.
His orbs.
All right. So
I love that.
here's my crackpot theory behind why like he could look down behind his mask to hide his eyes. He's not human, we think, possibly. So his eyes are on stalks. So he's literally lowering his eyes below the eye holes.
Much more conspicuous, yeah.
Jess, I was drinking coffee. You can't come up with a zinger like that while I'm drinking coffee.
Get wrecked.
I almost spewed it all over the microphone. Jeez. Okay.
I just have to read, this is one of the last sentences, the next to last sentence before the end of the prologue. The masked man gave a curt nod, his masked gaze fixed ahead. And I think that tells us all we need to know about the book, if we want to start chapter 1.
All right, let's send it.
Well, I'm going to summarize, though, because I think that the prologue is detrimental, shows its amateur hour, and is cringe. Those are my 3 takeaways.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but I'm offended.
Prologue, if you're going to have a prologue, it should set the tone of the entire book, be very clear in genre, and be something that happens distantly enough from the rest of the book that it needed to be separated by a full, this is not even technically part of the book kind of separation. And that is not what this feels like.
And you have to assume that some people are going to skip it. Don't even start with me about it. It's just something people will do.
I will do it.
So you have to assume people will skip it. Yeah, I
will always skip a prologue.
I hate prologues because people don't write them well. So,
and I skip them because I feel like if you're going to write the book, just write the book. It's fine if people have them. Obviously, I'm not going to dock points for having them. But as a reader, I'm not going to read it.
yes. So don't make your prologue something that you have to read for the rest of the book. Although in this case, I think skipping it may be to the reader's favor.
And now we start chapter 1. Okay, so first chapter impressions. Let's start with writing style. This is expositive. There is nothing in this that is not part of the plot exposition, including the dialogue. And the details that are there, some of them are pretty, but most of them are just repetitive, to the point that there's a paragraph in the chapter 1 that's also in the prologue, as though the prologue was just copied and pasted and then added in after and never read in sequence with the rest of the book.
Well, I will say, though, the author did take our advice preemptively into account and did make it so you didn't need to read the prologue.
Yeah.
But that's also a problem.
Yes.
Because when people do read the prologue, you've already said, here are what they look like. This is the arsonist. He is masked. And then you go into the first chapter as though the prologue doesn't exist.
The prologue shouldn't exist.
The prologue shouldn't exist, but if it exists, then the first chapter has to take it into account.
Yes.
So it doesn't make sense that we describe them as just people and then don't point out that they're the arsonist or that he's masked or whatnot until a page in or something.
The dark hooded figure. Like, yes, it's not just that it didn't need the prologue, it's that the prologue is actively a detriment.
Yeah, the prologue is hurting this book.
Yes. So I would instantly recommend cutting it. But the prose in this book, it is so very amateur. And I'm not...
It feels stream of conscious.
Yes, but it's also like nobody even thought to go through this and even remove some of those like really, really bad filter words. Things like, let me see, there was one that was very particularly bad. He could feel cold raindrops hitting his covered head, and he could see the steam coming off his gauntlets as raindrops hit them.
Yep.
Just say, steam rose off his gauntlets with the drops of rain or something. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The same rain that pelted his head.
And the way that people talk, like the words that they use, it's already hit my farm. If it hits my farmhouse too, he lives there. It's just his house. It's not a farmhouse.
Yes.
And the descriptors, no one did any sort of line editing in this.
No.
His worried, scrawny green eyes gazed.
Oh, yeah.
What are scrawny eyes?
I loved that.
What does that mean?
That was my favorite part of the chapter.
That was, I think, where I laughed. I think we all kind of laughed at that.
How'd you feel about the writing style, Jess? Love it?
I mean, I think this is the first time that we've read together and audibly laughed, so that doesn't bode well for it.
That's true.
It's short. That's in its favor.
I do like that it's short, because, there's going to be frequent breaks, hopefully, if they're all short like this, and I'm going to need them.
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing I can hope is that it does improve over time, because this doesn't seem like it's been edited, to be quite honest. So that usually means that toward the middle and end, there will be some improvement as the writer is writing the thing. But I don't know. We could be doomed.
What about the world building? I felt that the world did have a lot of details based off of all of the exposition that we got about it. Now we know apparently red eyes are bad and probably mean a monster, and people don't take well to you hiding your face, even though he didn't really show that in the prologue and didn't really question it otherwise.
Yeah. I think the world building came the closest to trying to almost be a thing.
Yeah.
Because you got like the details about there being like infected coming up from some location, presumably to the south, and
his arsony is mechanical.
Yes.
With a very, very small amount of fuel that seems detrimental to any sort of actual fight.
Yeah. But just because it was potentially the strongest point of the chapter doesn't mean it was good. And it wasn't.
Yeah. Just on the point of the fuel, by the way, it's referred to as yellow liquid. So in my headcanon, he's fueling it with his own piss, which would be great. But I don't think that's actually what's intended. Typically, you want to stay away from yellow liquid as a descriptor. That's just a really nice rule of thumb because we're all 12 years old. Particularly.
It would only be worse if it was thick and white.
That's fair.
Hey, you know what? I actually read a book where the whole magic system was built around the humors. And yeah, that was one of them.
So Sarah is 12 and Jess is 13 is what we're learning. Characters and characterization. They're not characterized. Mm-mm. They're not. He did a deed. He went into the barn that he was afraid to fight these things, but he would rather do this than, because he's very afraid of pain, but he would rather do this than work on a farm for a day, which is a really weird choice to make. But the author is very obviously trying to skew reader perception toward, this guy isn't great, but also he's a good guy who's trying to help people, based off of the farmer's reaction to just the arsonist apparently giving free information about how their general kingdom works, I guess. It's like, hey, say it's a war crime and then the rangers will compensate you. And the farmer's like, oh, then you're actually a good guy. And it's like, he didn't do that. That's just information that is in the world.
Yeah.
That's not him. But my favorite line in the entire thing, after he has used fire to kill these beasts and burned the farmer's barn down, he opened the door first. He didn't just burn the barn down with the things inside because that would be too convenient and automatically kill them. He had to open the door and put himself in danger to then burn them and the barn down. But the farmer says, the rangers, you think they'll do that for me? They're supposed to compensate the farmers for any losses made as a result of a war crime. A war crime? Aye, a war crime. Who are you, stranger? You're obviously not a criminal, so why are you called an arsonist? He just burned your barn down. What do you mean, why is he called an arsonist? It's currently burning behind you. Currently. He threw extra fuel onto it so it would burn faster. Why are you called an arsonist? That is so much the author trying to say, look, he's really a good guy, that it hurts. Why do they call you a criminal, maybe? Arsonist is pretty clear.
Well, and also we get a detail that the arsonist is 19 years old. So I'm already worried that this is going to be a self-insert. And whenever we see the begging the question of how this person can be so bad but also so good, it really leans into that. And I'm super concerned now that it's just going to be a self-insert, basically fan fiction.
Yeah, he's not a good guy. I mean, he might be a good guy, but currently all we know is that he's aware of how the taxation system puts out money in terms of war crimes. Like,
well, and this would have been...
He didn't do anything.
This would have been... No, but also this would have been so much more interesting if he was like this kind of Pyrrhic character where he's like, yeah, I'll take care of the monsters for you, burns down the barn. Like, that would actually be fun characterization. I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, you're kind of an asshole.
And it would show that he's competent. He doesn't put himself in danger for no reason.
Yes, exactly.
And that's where it feels like, in using your fanfiction term, a Witcher fanfiction. Because Witcher is very popular right now. Great game. But it is known for you do it for money. And maybe, like, you're not a bad guy, but you're not going to save people not for money. And you go around hunting things. And, like, you sometimes get a rap as someone good and sometimes get a rap as someone bad because you're going to cause the damage you need to cause. And that's a hallmark of the popular Witcher series. That's the only thing that really comes through in this that the author's trying to push at us, is we're just doing our job, but also we saved people. You're welcome.
But we're so worried about the perception of the audience about this character that we cannot just let it sit as they kind of fucked up, but also, yeah, they technically did complete the job.
And also, when the farmer doesn't want to give him the money, he seems like the second half of the money after burning the barn down, he seems like he's like, well, darn, okay, and then he's gonna leave. And then because he tells the farmer how to get recompense for what just happened, the farmer's like, oh yeah, I guess here's the other half then. Like, was he just, is that why he asks for the first half up front? Because when someone tells him, no, I'm not gonna pay you, then he just walks away? No wonder he doesn't have any money.
Yeah, this is not a solid foundation for storytelling at all. Like, I'm not interested in this character because I can already tell that we're going to pussyfoot around with it and we're not going to let him actually be bad. We're not going to like let you think that he might be bad. It's just we're going to beg the question so hard that it's not even going to be a story. And that's already frustrating because I'm like, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Also, I just realized why the title always points up, because I just set the book down on my table and glancing at it, everything is upside down because we naturally set books cover side up.
I never would have thought of that. That makes sense.
Now you know. It's funny though, because like I've done that naturally. Like I've already like formatted my stuff and I'm like, you just naturally do that. You don't even think about it. So I'm like, you have to, I don't know how you did this, but anyway, go on.
Does the intro fit the genre? I'm still not sure. I don't know if this is technically a fantasy if it's not on Earth, or if it's paranormal, because it's not clear if it is back in time on Earth or not. But I will say it's either fantasy or paranormal. So that's something.
I don't know that it fits anything.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Like the intro doesn't, it doesn't feel like it's really driving us to adopt an idea about what this book is supposed to be. It just literally feels like we need to introduce this character somehow. And this is the character. The character is what we care about. We don't care about the story. We don't care about the place. We don't care about anything else. It's literally just this character because this is very likely to be a self-insert. But that's the only thing we care about. And I have no idea we don't even know what the story is supposed to be at this. We have no idea what the hint, like what the thrust of the story might be at this point. It literally seems like it's just going to be random dude going around kind of accidentally fucking up every single time he tries to do something helpful. And that's as much plot as I could guess at this point, which is funny because this is supposed to be an inciting incident of some kind.
No, this is an introduction. This was just
fair.
set up to introduce the character being cool, but also being harsh and only being there for money, but saving someone and helping. It's just a character introduction. This will not come back into play. It doesn't matter. Only a character introduction, which is not how your book should start, and it doesn't present us the world, and it gives a bad feeling in my heart that since we have the Arsonist and then 4 other probably point of view characters, we're going to get 4 more chapters of just introduction.
Yes.
And I hope that's not the case, but that's how it feels.
No, that's absolutely what's going to happen. 112%. We already know that, Jack. That's just what's going to happen. But also, I'm going to just throw it out there really quickly because physical details matter. I don't know how we burnt a hole in the barn.
So I assumed that the blast from the fire was much larger than I'm imagining. So I went from small flamethrower to very large flamethrower.
With a tiny amount of fuel.
And that's the best that I could figure. Or just that he was standing basically right in front of the barn because he threw open the doors and he didn't run a long way away before turning and going after the things. Like, he was just really close to the barn, maybe?
It did say he ran away. I don't know.
But, like, how far? I'm basically imagining dogs. They're going to be a lot quicker than we are. You're not going to keep your back to them for a long time. I'm not thinking that he's running a safe distance from the barn.
Well, so the bigger problem is that it actually takes a long period of sustained fuel and focus of fire with a flamethrower to light something on fire.
And it's raining, so the wood's wet.
Well, that too. But also, barns are big. Barns are naturally a large structure because they are intended to house equipment, animals, feed, and all kinds of other stuff.
If you lit the hay inside, that would be different.
Yes. But the thing is, you're not going to just have an instant thing. It will turn into a conflagration. It's not going to instantly be a conflagration at that point. So that's what I'm like. The physical details in this are abysmal because nothing gets the appropriate focus. And I'm trying to, because the thing is, I don't want to just dog on this. There has to be a way to fix it, but I think that the problem with this at its root is that it is just amateurly written and it needs a developmental edit, very likely. We will see that with the rest of the book. But this is also like the writing that I would expect of a 15 to 16-year-old who has not matured at all yet. So there's like a lack of adult finesse in it, actually. A lack of study, a lack of understanding, a lack of exposure to literature. Like, there are some things that just come naturally.
See, what I work with a lot of different authors, and rather than saying it lacks an adult finesse, I would say that it lacks the ego-crushing stage. It lacks an author who has shared his work a lot and gotten feedback. This doesn't read like he writes a lot, gets feedback, and then edits. This reads like he writes, assumes it's good, maybe shares it with family or some friends, and then publishes.
No, I specifically meant it lacks adult finesse. Like, whenever I say that, no, I'm serious, because it lacks a certain maturity is actually more what I'm picking up on. It's not just the writing style itself, it's what is chosen to be put on the page and how we put it on the page. It lacks maturity. So whenever I say it lacks adult finesse, it actually does come across as somebody who is very, very young writing, specifically, who doesn't yet have real world experience or the kind of maturity that it takes to evaluate being an adult in the real world. So that whenever I said that, I actually did mean adult finesse. But also, you're right. There's an element of just lack of finesse in the writing too that is also there.
Do you think this is meant to be YA? I would put it in YA at this point.
It kind of feels that way, yeah. Yeah. But I don't think it's meant to be, no. It feels like it's intended to be adult, but written by a child, which I don't think the author is a child. I actually, looking at his picture, I can tell he's not. But that's all. It's just the comparison. I don't think it is intended to be YA. Maybe it is, in which case it does get a little bit more leeway. You could maybe have a character that's like this. I wouldn't still call it good necessarily, but it would get a lot more leeway. So maybe that's the answer, is that this is supposed to be YA.
Does the Amazon page say? I'm gonna go find out.
Just tell us, Jess. Expose it all. There is a nice map in it, though.
Yeah, and he does credit the artist who did like the cover and the little chapter doohickeys and the map. So that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my only problem is half the map is set up higher than the other half of the map.
It is in teen fiction.
Teen fiction. Oh,
So
okay.
YA.
All right.
Teens and YA.
Oh, that's good at least. Well, it does come across as YA. So with that in mind, then, it comes across as extraordinarily unpolished teen fiction, but you could probably get away with most of this. Prologue should still be cut. The writing style should still be cleaned up. We need to eliminate those filter words. But I'm going to be a lot less fussed about the fact that the farmer is effectively a cardboard cutout that goes bouncing up and down every single time you make him talk, while you're going like at the side of your mouth. And I'm also going to forgive the fact that the horse's name is Xenos.
And all of my comments still stand, because I think we should hold adult and YA to the same standard. It's the storytelling itself which falls flat in this. The writing itself, which falls flat in this. The details are repetitive. The people speak in nothing but exposition. And YA or not, those things should be fixed.
Yeah.
That's true. But whether or not it will be successful in YA is much more likely, even with these great sins.
Kids deserve good books too.
That's true, but that's because people look down on YA.
Yes.
And they go, oh, well, it's YA, and say it's fine. Not because it's fine.
That's fair. I was just trying to think if I would have continued reading this as a teenager, maybe.
If I found it on fanfiction.net, maybe. Anywhere else, no. And also I would have to be very young. I would have to be like
13,
12,
14.
13. Yeah, I'm not even getting into 14. No. If I'm actually in my teens, I'm not reading this.
I'm glad that you pointed out that it feels like if you read it on fanfiction.net, because I was like, yeah, this definitely reads like some fanfiction that I read when I was a kid.
Yeah, can't even be. AO3 wasn't in existence yet whenever this style was popular. Last question, and we will all have shocking answers. Would you keep reading on your own?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
If I was 13, probably. I had garbage taste.
Are you 13?
No.
Currently.
Well, we already said I'm 12, so I'll be 13 in a year.
All right, so next year, Sarah will finish reading this book, and she'll love it.
I'm changing my hat, though. I feel like I've been very, very hard on it. I am going to put myself more in, because here's the thing. I do agree with you that it needs to be, like, we shouldn't let things off because it's YA, but in some respects, you're not going to have as harsh of an audience either. So whether or not you should do something doesn't necessarily equate to you will do something, I guess, if that makes sense. And it may or may not also equate to what your competition will be doing either. So it does get a lot more leeway in my mind for that. But I will put on my 12-year-old hat.
And I'm going to say that that's an incorrect opinion based off of what we're doing right now with indie authors, where people are saying our expectations for indie authors are lower, and so they can get away with what they're doing and with the bad writing and with the shitty covers.
That's fair.
Because it's not trad publishing, and that's what we're saying with YA, because the expectation is lower and they can get away with it, and so it's fine. It's not. Write to your audience, but write well.
That's true. And this is not good writing, just on its face.
This is not good writing.
But here's the thing. I was not as sensitive to bad writing, so the question of whether I would keep reading doesn't change. If I were still in my teen years, a protagonist who wears cool gauntlets, that lights things on fire, and has a mask and red eyes, like, I would have been into that. I hate myself for saying it, but I would have been into it.
Okay.
So, I'm not into it now.
So let's read the rest of the book and hope that the story holds the weight of the everything else.
All right, moving on to the book. Now, to preface this, this book broke pretty much everybody on the team.
Only our spirits.
I mean, our spirits, our souls, our minds, our bodies, everything. However, because I already am about as mad as I possibly can go, I was actually the one who was tasked with the outline, the plot summary this time around. I am significantly less professional than Jack is, so I do apologize from the get-go for what's about to happen, but I think that you will find it's in the spirit of the book. So
It's not a good sign.
it's a great sign, actually.
So it's edgy. It's edgy and immature. That's the spirit of the book.
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure I'm on the same page.
So I'll roll through this, and then we can jump into discussion about the book and all of our thoughts on it. So I did this as a chapter by chapter because I think part of that does give you a feel for the flow of the book, and I found that to be important. So bear with. So in the prologue, the arsonist gets commissioned to remove these creatures from a barn. They are apparently feral vampires. We learn that later. In Chapter 1, the arsonist fulfills that commission. In Chapter 2, we meet Rice and Farbris. Farbris is Rice's uncle, and Rice doesn't know it yet, but he's the arsonist's brother. We get a failed attempt at foreshadowing, with Rice planning to cover living weapons in the class he teaches. Even though he's late, he stalls in the town square to flirt with the mayor's daughter, who has nothing to do with anything, so you can forget she exists. Her sole purpose is to procure a balloon that some of the cast will use to escape the town at the end of the book. Chapter 3, we meet Braygan. Braygan? He's the arsonist's cousin. He's cooking food for his mother at a place that has patrons. His only patron is Beatty. They exchange small talk. Braygan eats a lemon. Some bad guys show up, chasing Beatty, who's apparently a smuggler, and Braygan runs too for raisins. He gets captured and sent to prison for no reason whatsoever, but it's by vampires, so foreshadowing. The foreshadowing is that the vampires are in control of all this stuff and are the big bads. Also, they're using the prison to harvest blood surreptitiously. Chapter 4, we meet Daniel and his father, Renson. He's learning to shoot a magic bow, and they are rangers. Daniel is still extraordinarily sensitive about his mother's death 11 years ago. He's 20, to the point where the word mother is enough to rattle him. But his father still said it because he thinks Daniel's stupid enough to be confused if you swap gender roles in a common idiom. Despite how stupid Daniel apparently is, his father sends him out on a mission to investigate the fire from Chapter 1. Chapter 5, we are introduced to Lila. She's a druid recruit and touches a monolith that is implied to give sexual satisfaction. That's all. Chapter 6, back with the arsonist. He's chilling at an abandoned cathedral. He has a wolf. He sleeps. The entire chapter is almost entirely about peeing and pooping. He leaves the next morning to pay the Neanderthal brothers a visit. That's not their actual name, but it's close, and I can't be bothered to look it up. Chapter 7. Farbris is woken by his ex-wife, Felina, who persuades him to go rescue Braygan. He collects Rice because he needs him to blend in at something somewhere. It's not important. The important thing is that Rice, a teacher, is kicking up a fit about the fact that he has to pretend to be a scholar. He's not a scholar. That's an actual line. There's also more poop jokes that weren't even funny to a 12-year-old boy. Chapter 8, Briggan is in stupid prison. This prison system is either you work all day and don't get food, or you get beaten and do get food, because that makes sense as the thing adult humans would set up. Also, it's a vampire blood factory. Also, he's almost raped, and he's a teenager, so this is extraordinarily uncomfortable. I mean, more so than it already would have been. It's how it's presented. Realistically, it's a topic you should feel uncomfortable about, but it's bad when you're laughing. Regardless, Briggan is saved by Alaric, who just happens to be his uncle. Then Beatty shows up because he got arrested too, and hints that they'll be rescued soon by pirates. Chapter 9, back with Daniel. He meets with the farmer whose barn was burnt down. They follow the tracks of the arsonist to the cathedral and break in, where they meet Mavis, another ranger. She was apparently pulled away from Fort Quiver to guard here. Daniel is disturbed by the revelation that Fort Quiver is having troops removed and says he must go back and see his father. They all leave except for one ranger who stays behind, shoots a random person who looks like an old man because it maybe could have been the arsonist, but it was actually a vampire, and the vampire's vampire companions attack and eat him. No one ever notices or cares that he's dead. Lila is training at the Druid Grove by sitting very, very still. We cut away from her because she's useless to instead take part in an ominous conversation by the Elder Druids about an impending doom. Chapter 11. The arsonist just happens to run into Rice and Farbris as they meet. Oh, I hate Farbris as a name. That's so hard to say. Rice and Farbris.
Say Febreze.
Just call him Febreze.
Febreze, yes. We're changing Farbris's name to Febreze from here on out. The arsonist just happens to run into Rice and Febreze as they meet with some vampires. Febreze has been sneaking them animal blood to stave off their threat against Prosperwood Village. The arsonist eavesdrops until his horse sneezes or something, and the vampires realize he's there. They attack. He responds by lighting everything on fire, per usual. And then he, Rice, and Febreze squabble. But Rice also expects this random stranger and ostensible criminal to travel with them now. Farbris realizes, but also doesn't realize, that this is Rice's brother. They part ways. Chapter 12, we're with Rice and Febreze. But the point of views really matter so little because the head hopping in this book is dreadful. Oh yeah, Rice has been dreaming about the arsonist. Forgot that stupid detail, but this is literally just travel and Farbris expositing about the past. There's really not anything interesting or important except that we have in this chapter one of the many instances of a character wiping a single tear off their cheek. It happens so bloody often. Chapter 13. It's suddenly winter now, even though all indications to this point were that everything is very temperate, and this will remain a confusing point that only crops up occasionally. In this chapter, Vidi is nice to Briggan, and that's literally all that happens. Chapter 14. Daniel questions his father about what's going on. His father's all like, yeah, it was probably a bad idea to empty the fort, actually. And he sends Daniel with the force from the hold to reinforce the fort that he just unreinforced. Chapter 15. Lila again. She talks with Celosia, a fellow druid recruit. They have the chemistry of sleeping fruit bats, but there is a heavy implication that they're supposed to be inching toward a relationship. This is the only thing this chapter does, and because Lila is a paperweight, we don't care. Chapter 16. The arsonist meets with the Neanderthal brothers, and they have invented a gun for him. Now he has a gun. Chapter 17. It's cold. Rice and Febreze coincidentally show up where the arsonist is to see if they can stay the night there. They all squabble unnecessarily some more, and the arsonist says he has a place they can stay because the mill's too small. They head to a bordello, which is uncomfortable because despite being almost 20, both Rice and the arsonist act and sound like 14-year-olds. Take this as a stern warning of things to come. Chapter 18. Briggan is broken out of prison by pirates along with Alaric and Vidi. The guy who tried to rape Briggan has his head blown off by a cannon. Chapter 19. Daniel gets to the fort and is like, oh shit, we're actually at war here. Despite being a commander, he signs up for watching a foxhole later, which I'm not sure why they're using since they have a fort, but what the fuck ever, and then he goes to bed. Chapter 20.
Can I just say what impressive aim it would be to actually decapitate someone with a cannonball from a ship while they're like,
They did it in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Well, I've never seen that. So.
Well, now you have, vicariously.
Perfect. But if that were to happen, that would be really impressive aim.
I have to assume it was like an accident, a coincidence. They were just throwing them anywhere and it just happened to.
I mean, I usually shoot my very hard to load weapons that take a lot of prep time.
At a single person?
Yeah, just everywhere, spraying them everywhere.
Yeah, my bad. Go on.
All right. So, chapter 20. The druids get attacked by the vampires. The pirates show up and save them. Lila and Bregan are in a group now. They decide not to stay on the ship, but instead to head back because Lila's going to talk to her father or something. So Bregan, Lila, Celosia, and Viti head out with some red shirts. Chapter 21. Rice, the Arsonist, and Febreze arrive at the bordello, and they all kind of just go do whatever by themselves. We mostly stick with the Arsonist, and we get a name drop. His name is also Alaric. Gasp! However, it means nothing, so I'm not using it. Then dumb things happen, everyone here are vampires or something, I guess, and the Arsonist gets into a tiff with them and ends up, you guessed it, burning the place down. Time doesn't matter, but they entered at midday, and now it's night, even though they've been here for like an hour max. Then they randomly, get attacked by a werewolf, and everyone flees the area. This was random, and it remains random forever, as all the werewolf attacks do. Chapter 22. On the page, we have Lila, Celosia, Bregan, Viti, red shirt, Neanderthal brother, dead Neanderthal brother, non-werewolf, Rice, Febreze, Saranda, another red shirt, and the Arsonist. That is 14 damned characters. We are getting chased and attacked by the werewolf, and a few of the red shirts are slimmed from the lineup. Saranda offers to distract the wolf so they can run away, and we make a pretense at care between the Arsonist and her. This will be very tragic when she stabs him to death at the end and a single tear runs down her cheek. Oh yeah, and the pet wolf died. Don't worry, you won't care. Chapter 23. Back with Daniel, he has a conversation with another ranger who basically says he's 5 days from retirement. Then the fort is attacked and overrun by vampires that act like the World War Z zombies. Some ranger reinforcements show up and then run away. Everyone dies, and Daniel is turned into a vampire. Chapter 24. The party of Farbris, Arsonist, Rice, Bregan, Lila, Celosia, Vita, and Red Shirts 1 and 2 arrive at the cathedral. They talk and squabble. The Arsonist heads out with the red shirts to hunt a deer. Rice, Febreze, and Bregan head up to try to find a weapon that Alaric told them to find. It is a deus ex machina, in case you were wondering. Chapter 25. Daniel is a vampire. He fights out of the fort, kinda, and rides off to get back to the hold. Chapter 26. The Arsonist and the red shirts bond while they hunt a deer, which becomes an elk. One of them slings this elk over his shoulders to carry it after it's dead. Now I know what you're thinking. No, there's no magic involved. He's just a man. A strong man, but a man nonetheless, slinging an entire dead elk onto his shoulders. An animal which, for context, is not a deer, and outweighs your average human by 3 to 4 times. So we're doing really well. Chapter 27. Rice, Febreze, and Bregan find the sword. The Arsonist returns, and then we get exposited that the Arsonist and Rice are twins, but gasp, the Arsonist was actually made when the curse was split off from Rice. He feels bad about this. There are no other details about this curse, and never will be. Chapter 28. Daniel is captured by the vampires, and they take him to the manor, where we meet our step down from the big bad Lord Argentwald. The real big bad is Zurston. Daniel pretends to be a part of their thing so he can get to Prosperwood and warn them that the vampires are about to attack. Chapter 29. Back with the whole crew again, and they eat. And the Arsonist is big sad about his wolf. They decide to head to Prosperwood tomorrow together in order to split up. Chapter 30. Daniel gets his bow back. Saranda is alive and is supposed to kill the Arsonist for raisins. We get to see the manor, and there's a lot of dead people here. It's honestly shocking with the sheer volume that the entire world hasn't been wiped clean already, especially considering the World War Z vampires we saw at the fort in volume. But whatever, people just spawn as an endless resource here, I guess. We're almost done, and that's what's important. Chapter 31. Everyone arrives in Prosperwood, which is filthy and calm. I don't know what that means. They are hanging out at a pub together. The Arsonist is going to commandeer a hot air balloon chilling there that the Neanderthal brothers made and go join his father to fight the big bad, I guess. Lila and Celosia have a lover's tiff, and then they kiss. The Arsonist is chased off from the balloon by its captain, who just lives in it. Bregan takes off to go find his mother. All these things are happening, just happening, and will continue to happen. Chapter 32. Daniel heads out with some vampires, kills them, and goes on alone to the hold, where he overhears the rangers that abandoned them lying about having done so to his father. His father turns into the werewolf, and Daniel decides to hunt him down instead of trying to save Prosperwood. Also, he's killing lots of people who are very grateful, apparently, to die, so we know he's not a bad person. Chapter 33, Celosia and Lila are snuggling and being bitchy lesbians. And then they see Lila's father show up, and they go back to the pub to tell everyone. Meanwhile, Farbris has suddenly decided they're about to be attacked, so he wakes up Rice. The ladies show up. They're all surprised to Pikachu phase about what's going on, but oh no, where's Bregan? They decide the concert hall for some reason. Chapter 34, Thaniel accidentally rejoins the vampires, but then he just focuses on finding and killing his father still. Febreze is all like, we gotta skedaddle, and then Thaniel drinks a guy, and his horse leaves. Chapter 35, the Arsonist is at the balloon, but he sees Lila and is all like, ah shucks, I can't abandon my newfound friends. So he joins Lila with Bregan. We don't know when Bregan showed up. They join up with all the other ones except Rice and Celosia, who went to find Bregan's mother at the concert hall. Everyone goes to the balloon except for Lila, Viti, and Redshirt number 1, who all go to the concert hall to save Rice and Celosia. Chapter 36. Rice and Celosia are at the concert hall, and even though half the city is on fire, the concert people aren't concerned because fire is a poor people's issue. They kind of get attacked by the beast while they're breaking into the hall, and Thaniel saves them. Thaniel tries to get Rice to come help him hunt the werewolf, but Rice convinces him to help them first. They enter backstage and come across Lord Argentwald's shoulders. Lord Argentwald's soldiers. Boy, that's a mouthful. Apparently, the symphony is already dead. Chapter 37. Lila and the others arrive at the concert hall. The vampires start killing everyone there. Celosia is killed. Rice is not. Lila is not. The others are. Lila is intercepted by her father and joins him. Her wild and free days of lesbianing are over. Oh, and then Bregan is there and not at the hot air balloon, even though we went with the other group. Chapter 38. Rice and Thaniel catch Bregan, and they start heading back to the balloon while being attacked by vampires. Chapter 39. Febreze realizes the red shirt let his son go, and the red shirt's all like, what? He had to go to the bathroom. So it's nice to see us closing the loop on that little motif. Thaniel runs into Nihilus, who's Lila's father, and hands over his bow. Thaniel and Lila are cousins, by the way. Everyone in this book is related to each other. Bregan ran off on his own, for raisins. Thaniel is back with the vampires, all nonchalant, and they're like, yep, nothing suspicious going on with you. And the werewolf is still running around. It kills Bregan because Rice tells him to stop running from it for some reason. Then the Arsonist faces off with the werewolf, cuts it in half with Rice's sword, which Rice found very amusing when he asked for it, despite his teenage cousin just getting wrecked in front of his eyes, but whatever. And then Saranda stabs the Arsonist, and he dies. We did it, guys. We killed our main character. Expectations subverted.
Expectations not subverted.
Because of the paralytic that is undoubtedly on the tip of that knife.
Yes, she very specifically changed out lethal for a paralytic so that we know, even in this book, that he's alive. We couldn't leave that as a surprise to the next book.
Yeah, I was trying to leave it as important. A surprise to the next book. Thanks for spoiling it, you assholes.
It's important.
It's not a good surprise.
Chapter 40.
Hey, that's my line. Chapter 40. As promised, Saranda tears a single tear. Then there's some villainous speech of Argentwald being all like, thanks for basically giving us this town, Nihilus. The town that we just killed everyone in, even though we're vampires and need those alive to eat, but whatever. Rice and Febreze float away with 2 characters no one cares about, and Bregan's body. Good thing there was a limit of 5 people on this balloon, and we made the nice room for a dead one. The end. Oh wait, to be continued.
Ha. That was painful even to listen to in short form. It took a long time. So I'm going to say that Sarah, while editing, because she is wonderful and edits this for us all on her own, applause, she should put a little, marker
like
in
a
the video that lets
skip.
people skip to the end of listening to this.
Yeah.
So that they don't actually have to sit through this book if they don't want to.
Skip
Chapters are important.
Yeah.
No.
Just for this video.
Here's the thing. I think that if we had to suffer, everyone has to suffer.
By the time you got to chapter 17, I was like, oh God, we're so far away.
Yeah.
Just listening to you.
But you know what? I expect that people will want to hear the entire book the same way they enjoy watching a train wreck. Guys, this was a bad book.
At least trains wreck quickly.
All right, everyone, tell us in the comments, did you listen to the whole book? Did you want to listen to the whole book?
But here's the thing. Okay. So we can laugh about this. This was it. I think it should be clear just listening to that summary. The one thing is that the summary did the book a kindness in a lot of ways, because there's really not a great way to express the complete bullshittery that is this book. Because you have to remember every single one of those plot points is wrapped up in pages and pages of the most tedious prose you've ever come across in your life. Like, this is, the way I describe it is, it's C-spot run writing. Like, if you've ever read the children's book.
Here, I will help.
Go ahead, please.
Summing up his writing is the first paragraph in Chapter 10. This perfectly sums up everything that he writes. The Druid recruits sat in a circle, surrounding the monolith that pierced through the earth like an arrow pointed toward the sky. The chirping sounds of crickets and other various bugs fell upon the ears of the recruits at a constant, thus breaking their meditative silence. Moths flew around the closed eyes of the men and women, and tiny black beetles crawled off the tall pieces of grass and onto the crossed legs of the recruits. Nothing could disrupt their silence, as they held each other's hands, making a ring around the sanctum, while sitting on the grass with their legs crossed. So in that single paragraph, we have sat in a circle, making a ring around the sanctum. We have onto crossed legs and with their legs crossed, and we have thus breaking their meditative silence, and nothing could disrupt their silence. That's one paragraph.
Also, the only way it could be more representative of the author's writing style is if it had said, as they held the hands of each other.
Yeah, that's correct.
Jess, please expound upon that. You seemed annoyed.
I was very annoyed. I think the author has a thing against using like names with like possessive apostrophes and you know, it just was like everything was like a single tear rolled down the cheek of Saranda. Like, no.
Possession was a problem. I don't know why, but possession was a problem.
So, let's say that the writing style wasn't good. That's a very kind way to put this. Very young is what it feels.
Yes.
Part of me, so there are two theories. One theory that we have is that the author wrote this while young, found it and published it without ever looking at it. Another theory that I came up with while reading is that he is still young. This is written by a 12-year-old, and he just picked or generated by AI an author photo that looks older, and he's still 12. But the idea that this was written by an adult, it's a painful thought, guys.
Yeah.
Just because of the tendencies. So here's one of the things. This, I don't think people appreciate as much when they're young, but you do naturally gain experiences as you get older, and that's the way it should be. Everyone acts like, oh, like I remember being a teenager. You want to be mature. You want to not hear adults say how, you know, childish you still are. But it's a good thing, because it just means you haven't gone through and experienced all the hard knocks that life will bring. But in this book, there's just this complete disconnection between reality and people and what the story is doing.
Physics, logic, see the elk.
The elk.
Yeah, the elk. Also, the scene where the pirates who suddenly decided that they're a rescue crew showed up to help the druids, and then like the chop from their like cannonballs and stuff was still disturbing the water like minutes later.
Yeah.
Like making it difficult for the rowboat to get to the boat. And I was like, that's not how that works.
The fact that we have a prison that's on an island that can't defend itself from a single boat.
Yeah. And that the prison was that like cruel and like brutal to its occupants when they're meant to be a farm for the vampires. That doesn't make sense. Like, you want to like
I mean,
generate more blood, not waste their blood.
I just want my food to get infections,
right?
Left and right.
Maybe it tastes good. Maybe that's their like aging process. It's like blue cheese.
I don't like that. Great job.
All the more reason for me to not like blue cheese.
I really appreciate that. If that were the case, I would like it a lot better. I don't like it in thought and in that being like, you want the pus for the flavor.
But it would be a reason.
It makes me uncomfortable, and that makes me like it, because at least I would feel something if you described that in a book.
Well, and that's I think that we'll have, I think one of the things, because we've each decided in our end of year wrap up, end of season wrap up, that we're going to each kind of give an overview of how to fix some of the more egregious books that we've come across in this season. And this is the one that I'm going to do, because it is my discussion is basically going to be about maturing your concepts. Because it's not that I think that everyone should just abandon all the projects they ever had when they were young. You probably will need to abandon most of them, just to be quite honest with you. And again, this is speaking as somebody who did a lot of frickin' projects. I have so many books, full books, that I wrote whenever I was in my teens, and they're just not worth rewriting. They're not worth aging up and making into something. So it's one of those things. I'm coming from a place where it's like I totally understand the desire to put this thing that you love and you worked on so much and put it out there. But it's also one of those things where it's like, you're an adult. You've got to be able to look at this thing and be like, all right, maybe a lot of that was stupid, and why is everyone related to each other, and also secret royalty. I think, Jack, you have a little bit to say about that.
I hate it so much. So at the beginning of this book, I felt a lot. I felt a lot of bad things. Just about the idea that we are coincidental related to each other. And then, this is just...
I'm keeping that in.
A mouse just sneezed in the background. Weird.
I hate you guys. I felt a lot of bad things about the coincidental relations. The, cousin, out of nowhere. Especially, like Sarah has said. We get to the prison and, hey, is that my uncle? Cool. You don't normally run into people that you're related to, not realizing you're related to them. Like, you that's how much you don't see this person. And then it's like, hey, do you know this guy? Yeah, that's my father. You're first cousins. You're an uncle. Like, that closely related. And then it happens again with the Arsonist and Febreze and Riss, not knowing they're related, ending up together. And then we start being secret royals, where it's like, hey, I'm actually, this is Febreze, I'm the prince. Doesn't seem like his kid knows that he is also a prince because he's born of a prince. It doesn't seem like they live with any sort of means. Unclear where their kingdom is.
He's also a moron.
Yes, he's also a moron. Maybe that's why he's not the king. If there is a king, unsure. Don't know what this family tree actually looks like. But they're royals, don't act like it, don't seem like it, never bring it up. And then the next person is also a royal. And the next person is also a royal. And each one of these, I have a chart that I gave to Sarah that she will put in here. All of the ones that say secret royalty, all of these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 check marks are separate reveals where they go, and I'm the prince of this. And I'm the prince of that. And he's the prince of this. And then they're just dropped in there randomly, especially at the end. At the end, when we're in the middle of everyone dying and all of these, just this giant vampire attack and another army coming in for seemingly no reason because the vampires aren't threatening them. They just come in to be an army, I guess. And then one of our characters just goes, "Oh, uncle." The fuck? Like, are all of the royal families related? Because they're all separate royals with, if you look at the stupid map, separate places to rule over, but they're also all brothers or sisters or something.
This is going to say something.
I don't know.
This says something about the book, though, because I felt that his attempt at doing the royalty thing was the thing he came the closest to accomplishing in this book out of all the things he tried to do. There was so much worse, in my opinion. because what I gathered from reading it was that there was a triumvirate, and two of them are still ruling, and that is Thaniel's dad and Layla's dad.
Mm-hmm.
And then Alaric, as in the arsonist's father, was the other one. And his brother, who is Fabrice, is royalty by association because he's the brother of the old triumvirate.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some shit that went down in the past, and they like deposed Alaric, and they had to go into hiding or whatever. Like I think he tried to lay the groundwork enough that I think I picked up on it, but yeah, it wasn't good.
So I read it very much as just like fan fiction, early fan fiction, where it's really cool to have a cool back, like your lineage is amazing, and then people are surprised and impressed whenever they find out about your lineage. And he just did it for everyone. That's what it felt like to me. Like, and look, he's a prince. And look, she's a princess. And look, he's a prince.
Well, and also, here's the bigger problem, is that, Jess, you're very sweet trying to give the author some props. I'll give you that. You're very, very kind. However, Alaric was a Callan or whatever, right? Fabrice is a Moran, which is a different country, and he's the ruling lineage of that. That's why he had Bregan being very like.
It's in the map.
Yeah, there's a whole place that we didn't get to go to, but the lake is a part of it. Yeah, the map we'll talk about. We'll talk about.
So the two things that I would like to point out before we blessedly move on from that is just the coincidence required is what like broke my ceiling of disbelief repeatedly. The coincidence required not only to meet up with someone that you're related to, but to meet up with someone that you don't know that you're related to and end up traveling with them and have them also secretly be different royalty.
Yeah.
And to have that in multiple groups, multiple times.
Plus the secret twins.
The secret self-twins.
Yeah.
Where one of them isn't a real person, but he's just the embodiment of the curse that is taken from the other one. Because she only had one child.
That's why he burns everything down. Duh.
But technically, he's not the embodiment of the curse because the curse was split between them. You can tell because the one has white hair still and he has the red eyes. So the curse got flipped in half between the two of them. So neither of them are actually cursed.
Yeah, but he's also, like, they made a second human out of the baby.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And also, why is the curse just make them look vampire-like? Like,
I'm sure it'll come back.
There's other evils in, like, there's werewolf. Like, it doesn't have to all be, oh no, you look like a vampire.
See, I think that this was because it wasn't stated in the book and there was nothing made of it, and that's why I joked about it in my outline. But I think the curse was supposed to be that the baby was born as a vampire. And they were like, ah, shit, that's not good. So we're going to do some magic on him. And then they split him up into two people.
I mean, well.
Yeah. They're probably secretly the actual ruler of the vampires, and that's how they'll
probably
get Lord Argentwald. Because they're the real, genuine.
Dang.
The other problem with all the secret royalty is how the book begins with Rhys, where he is pining over Lady Winter, who is so much higher up than him because she's the daughter of the mayor. We're literal princes. Like, you're royalty, and this is someone who is the daughter of someone who runs a janky yokel town.
It's not actually yokel town, though. There is a yokel town.
No, but you get the point. And yet, that doesn't count? That never comes up in anyone's thoughts ever? Like, royalty means nothing in this.
No, it doesn't.
Unless you're Lila, who... Fucking Lila. Okay. Let's start off with going back. The book has a lot of typos. That's something that we discovered as we were reading. Typos to the level of, this was never read. This was just never read. No one read this before pressing publish.
Yes.
They typed it and then they published it.
Yeah, like a slash at the end of a sentence. Like, it's just so obvious that it's like, that shouldn't be there. It's not even like a easy to gloss over mistake. It's just like there.
Even if you ignore all of the inconsistencies, which range from having money to having no money to having money to having nothing to smoke to having enough that you can fill your pipe to having nothing to smoke, range from those things to the fact that we constantly have a reason why we have to go somewhere. Like, oh, we really have to go back to the mill because we'll freeze to death out here if we don't. Or we really have to stay at the church tonight because dangers come out at night and we need somewhere to shelter while it's dark, which gets you to the place that the plot needs. And then you immediately forget about why you were there, and whenever something happens, you just leave again. And the fact that you were going to freeze to death if you went outside all night didn't matter, because you don't, but you do stay outside all night. And the fact that you specifically went there because you needed somewhere to hole up at night doesn't really matter, and you just travel at night anyway, and it's fine. Constantly. It just forgets everything that was written beforehand, sometimes in the same paragraph. Ignoring that, there are a lot of just general proofreading typos also.
So, Jess, I feel like you had some things to say. Did you still remember what those were?
Not in this context, but I do have like so many things I wrote down, but we can have like a rant section or something later. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be necessary in this case.
Yeah.
But I would like to tack on a character and characterization segment to your plot segment.
Yes.
So that they understand.
I split mine up into characters.
Yeah. So just a general gist of their entire, I'm not going to call it a character arc because those don't exist. They're the same characters from beginning to end. But what the characters do throughout the entire book and their driving force. Rhys Kalon. He is in love with Lady Winter, a pretty snobby rich girl that somehow outranks him as the mayor's daughter, even though he's the son of a prince. He travels with his uncle, wearing scholar's robes that we spend an entire chapter putting on, but that never come into play. He tags along with his uncle to rescue Bregan, his cousin, who we end up just coming across at random, heads home only to find it under siege, and escapes in a hot air balloon. He has no goal or driving force through the book, he just goes along with his uncle. Alaric Kalon Jr., the Arsonist, he needs money so he can buy more lighter fluid and a pistol. He meets his brother/other literal half and uncle by coincidence, twice, travels with them for answers despite the fact that his uncle was willing to immediately tell him everything, then loses the magic heirloom sword that they found at the end while fake dying. His goals and driving forces are immediately achievable, and his reasons for continuing on are up in the air. Lila Prodator. She wants to become a druid for seemingly no reason, never explained, doesn't seem really bothered when she can't be a druid anymore.
Doesn't seem to learn anything about it either.
She falls in love with Celosia, who in true lesbian trope format dies, travels with the main characters because she wants to do something important, and they seem important. Has 2 conversations where she says maybe we should just leave, but no, Celosia says they need you, and then she goes, yeah, they probably need me as much as I need them. For reasons. Need them for what? Need you for what? We don't know. It never comes into play, but she constantly struggles with the fact that she doesn't have a reason to be with them. She gets into trouble, a lot of it, based solely off the fact that she, quote, won't leave them to die, then immediately abandons everyone the second her father arrives to save her, with 0 reaction to the fact that he's allied with the bad guys. She has no goal or driving force throughout the book. Thaniel Kadere. In the Rangers, which is headed by his father, who's secretly a werewolf. He starts, fails, and then abandons multiple ranger assignments, though this is somehow framed as positive agency, gets turned into a ghoul/vampire after failing to defend a fort, and joins the bad guys with the hopes that he can get to his father, who will look past the fact that he's now a monster, see the family underneath, and warn his father of the oncoming attack. When he reaches his father, he finds out his father is a werewolf and immediately decides his father is a monster who must die. This is thinly backed by the fact that his father must have presumably accidentally killed his mother while in wolf form, which is somehow less acceptable than the people Thaniel has intentionally killed for food up to this point. He doesn't warn anyone, once again abandoning his assignment in order to chase down his father, which he also fails to do. He approaches Lord Prodator, who happens to be his uncle, loses another magic weapon, and slinks off to do something. His goals throughout the book shift with the wind and last only until the next interesting thing comes up. No goals are ever accomplished or resolved. And finally, Bregan Moran. He gets taken to prison for no reason, does nothing but be ooh-woo while there, accidentally meets his uncle, whom he doesn't know, gets rescued by Viti, who very technically got him thrown in prison. His uncle's also there, and getting rescued by the same people for completely different reasons. So, pirate ship. He stumbles upon his father, brother, and cousin, also by accident, wants to save his mom from the oncoming horde, but almost immediately abandons that quest and dies. Aside from making everyone go to the dangerous place for his mom and then bolting, no goal or driving force through the book.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I thought that of all the characters, Bregan was absolutely the most useless. I really think he was just literally just in there to be the reason for them to go get separated and go to that symphony thing.
Correct.
That was all.
As soon as they get to the symphony, they're like, if he actually cared about his mom and he was like, oh no, my mom, we have to save her, we have to. When he saw that everyone, like the vampires are attacking, he would be trying to find his mom in the crowd. Yeah. Or someone would. And instead they're like, well, good thing we didn't have a real reason for coming here, let's leave.
Maybe he's secretly like Schrodinger's cat from Hellsing Ultimate and is just like everywhere all at once and also like shit stirring. Maybe he's the cause of all this. Maybe he is Zerston.
No. I couldn't get over the fact that he like works in this town. He like has a job. People know who he is. And just because vampires and reasons, he gets put into that prison that is for life. Like, he never had any real reactions. Like, he got threatened with rape, and it was just like, you know, obviously that's bad, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, we can talk about that in a second.
He was also young, but only when plot convenient. Like, he was treated at the same age as all of the other characters until it was like time for him to be like, I want to go save my mom. And they're like, you're a kid. And it's like, that's the only time in the whole book that you've actually been treated as like younger than the other characters. And it was just because they needed.
That's true.
Yeah, it was very dumb.
To be fair, he sounded like he was 6.
He did.
To be fair, everyone was super duper, very immature.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like in the brothel where Febreze was constantly just insulting prostitutes for existing. He flirts with some prostitute, and then afterwards he comes into a conversation and it's clear that he's not going to get with the prostitute who he previously insulted for existing. And his qualm is that she only wanted him for his money. You approached a prostitute. Knowing, in a brothel, you approached a prostitute in a brothel, and you're upset that she flirted with you for money. Yeah, she's the one in the wrong here.
Oh, I want to take a moment to pour one out for the least objectionable character in the book, and it's Dorian, the guy who plays the violin, who came to court Lady Winter, and who is like threatened by the vampires, and they tell him to play, and he's just like, everybody run for your lives, instead of just cowering and playing his violin. I was like, you know what? You had like 2 seconds of page time, but best character in the book, I think.
I think he was saved by that 2 seconds of page time. I think the more page time you get, the worse.
That's true.
I would like to point out that we have some mom issues in this novel.
Yeah.
Via the author. We have 2 mothers who are just, what's the word for idealized, but like put on a pedestal?
I think it's what you said. You don't need a single word for it. You described it.
Yeah, there's a particular literary term for it. Doesn't matter. They are just turned into angels in the mind that were brutally murdered when we were young or carried off by rogues and presumably brutally murdered. And then we have our other mom that we have to go save because we just, like, when we're in prison, we're Bregan right now, when we're in prison, almost dying and just after having been beaten and blah, 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 we just think about how wonderful our mom was and how we want to see her again. And then she clearly, probably, because who knows with this author and how lovely he is, gets brutally murdered in the symphony hall. And so we've got a lot of perfect dead moms
yeah.
in this book.
But also about, I don't know, I might be like veering the subject toward like the geography and the map, but I was so confused by Bragan lived like across the country, according to the map.
Yeah.
And the mom just showed up on the other side of the country to get his dad to go get him out of prison. Like, you were closer to him. Like, and why did you go yourself? Why didn't you, like, send a freaking courier pigeon or something? Wouldn't that be faster?
All right. Assuming that Sarah will now put the map up on the screen.
Yes.
Sarah, you want to walk us through some of this nonsense? I was blissfully ignorant that this map existed, because I will always skip maps because I hate them. All maps, not just fantasy maps. I just don't like directions. And then she pointed out the map, and then I saw how much even I can see that it doesn't make any sense, and that's bad. I'm not good with directions, guys.
Well, so here's the biggest problem. The only reason I even looked at the map, because I glazed over it and moved on. The reason I looked at the map specifically was because I kept hearing that Argentwald Manor was near Prosperwood. And I was like, I'm pretty sure Prosperwood is supposedly set behind Fort Quiver. And yet Fort Quiver is under attack by vampires. And that is a problem, because why are the vampires on this side of it and on that side of it? That doesn't make any sense. So then I looked, and lo and behold, that is correct. Argentwald Manor is set right next to Prosperwood Village, and everybody is traveling in the dumbest patterns possible. As you can see on the map, Windfall Harbor, which is supposedly where Bregan is, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. All the way up there next to the festering cage. Okay. And his mother supposedly lives there as well. And yeah, she came all the way down to Prosperwood Village to get his dad, to get him, to set him free. And then his dad ends up going to the Krastoff family grain mill, even though you can see that the bridge is right there, and that's the way to get across, apparently. Somehow ends up all the way over here, and then goes back to there, and then also to the Gladesmaids Bordello, which you can see between Prosperwood Village and the grain mill. And also, why are the vampires on both sides of the fort?
Okay. I have another geography complaint. Everything comes from the south. The scholars go to the south to get educated. The vampire threat comes from the south. The savages come from the south. This is Southern Abyss, but it's also where invention and technology comes from.
Correct.
What are you doing?
And also, beyond the Southern Abyss is a cliff, and that is all.
It is worth noting, from a writing perspective, that while reading this book, the world, despite being supposedly multiple kingdoms and traveling so much, felt very small.
Yes.
And it felt small because we had these people, these random singular entities, accidentally and coincidentally visiting the exact same, not only towns, not only areas, but buildings as each other, unplanned, sometimes around the same time, but just being like, oh yeah, I go to that same place. I go to that same place. I live 4 towns over or in a different kingdom. But yeah, I know this building. And it was in looking at this map that really nailed home how much it makes a world, because he built a world, feel very small, in that we have towns that take up the same amount of space as a building. So you have Yokelshire, and also just a cathedral, just a graveyard. You have the entirety of Prosperwood Village taking up the same space as a family grain mill, which is so small that there's only enough room for 1 bed for 2 people. Mm-hmm. So map-wise, this is both to scale and incredibly impossibly not to scale.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the thing is, it is a small world. It's an extraordinarily small world, which is wild because to get to Windfall Harbor is apparently a several-week thing, because that's why we had, what's-his-name, Febreze giving the vampires blood in order to make this trip, because he wouldn't be back in time for the next delivery. And so he's delivering this early so that he has enough time. But literally, the trip from Prosperwood Village to the family grain mill is a half a day max, and that's with a lot of faffing around in there. So it's an extraordinarily small thing. So if you take that, it's like a day and a half to get to Windfall Harbor maximum.
Also, something that I love is that if Riss and Febreze had never, or just Febreze, had never gone to save Bregan, the rest of the book wouldn't have happened. Because the only reason that it says that Argentwald attacked, both getting through Port Quiver and then immediately taking the village, is because they didn't get their tribute of all of the blood jars that they were supposed to. They were like, you guys didn't do your tribute, and so you'll give your tribute now as we kill you all. 99.9% of these people having no idea what in the world he's talking about, because he didn't do this through any actual governmental means, just some rando that lives, like, that people make fun of as the drunk that lives on the edge of town. That's who they're dealing with. And if he had just given them all the jars, then everyone would be safe and happy because they wouldn't have attacked.
Well, you know what the best part about it is? You're staving off a vampire attack with like 12 jars of blood. It's like a backpack's full of blood a week. And I'm not even kidding. You go to the Argentwald Manor and they have hundreds of bodies. They are just chock full of people that they're just draining of blood constantly. And so many people that they've killed.
And to get like 12 jars, you could kill a single cow.
Yes. Yeah. You see that and you're just like, the scale here is so off. But here's the thing. Okay. I did have a realization. And it's just one of those things where it's like, for everyone listening, we're all really good readers. We're pretty good at picking things up. This is just a very badly written book. But I think that the issue between the fort and Lord Argentwald being behind the fort is there's two separate types of vampires. There's the crazy vampires that are zombie vampires, essentially. And then there's the sophisticated, normal vampires that are, whatever, controlled. And I think it was the savage vampires that attacked Fort Quiver. And only them. And they're the ones who are taking over down here, I guess. But I don't know. That's pure speculation. And that's the only way that it would make any sense. It could be wrong. But that's the one thing I had a thought about.
That was what I took away too.
Good. I'm glad I'm not the only one. It doesn't make sense, though. The reason why it's muddied as a concept is because the vampires are attacking all through the Western Glades. There's really no reason for Fort Quiver to be anything at all. Yeah. But the vampires are attacking all through the Western Glades. And I don't know which ones those are. I think it is the feral ones, but also the ones that attacked what's-his-name in the tree and killed him that we don't remember his name of. I don't think those ones were feral. I think they were normal ones, but I just don't know. And there's no real good differentiation between these as groups, and I also can't tell if Argentwald is still kind of in control of them or not. Like, they don't seem to fight with each other as vampires. So it's just one of those things where it's like, it's a whole big miasma of unknowing.
And they also seem to be incredibly weak to fire. Like, you put fire on them and they immediately turn to ash, but no one puts two and two together and just starts using fire all the time. It's just that the arsonist happens to use fire, and then when it's inconvenient to kill vampires reasonably, then we use our gun. So getting a gun actually makes it worse, and that's something.
Fire really is. It like literally touches them and they just dissolve into ash.
So let's rewind to the druids. They conceptually I hate. So they used to be a matriarchal society, just all women run by women. Whoever's in charge, his grandma was the last matriarchal person. So it's been only 2 generations, but we're somehow all men. And we are very begrudging to let women back in because we've forgotten that we used to only be women. And so we're like, we have to let women come into these trials and possibly be a druid because we don't have enough recruits. But They have 11 recruits. They will only accept 4 of those 11. And after that, only 2 of those 4 will become druids. 3 of those 11 are women, taken on solely to boost the numbers, despite having a 9-person excess. So they don't actually need to accept women because they have plenty more than they need, considering they're only actually going to have 2 druids out of this group. And we're not even going to talk about the fact that 2 of those 3 people are lesbians. Like, the logistics on that. Not just bi, not just, like, interested in whatever. They specifically said, not really into men. Logistics. But that just seemed very silly. Like, there was no need to make all of that back and forth gender hierarchy.
Yeah.
Well, so you just illuminated something for me, because I thought that because that was what it said initially. And then we got this little line. Let me just read this because this confused the heck out of me. It says, the old women that controlled the Weeping Grove with a matriarchal atmosphere had diminished with time. Most of the women were incapable of bearing children for whatever reason. Some claimed it was the price they paid for guarding the monolith over the course of their entire lives. The few women that were able to bear children usually lost their lives in the birthing process. And I see that Juspin's mother was one of the last great female elders. There's no mention that they actually have died. So I read that and I was like, so are they still about? Is it even that bad?
I imagine if they were still about, then we wouldn't have so much of a fuss over having female recruits. And we wouldn't have a rule that we weren't allowed to have females.
Yeah, but it doesn't make sense regardless. It doesn't make sense either way. So I'm like, I don't even know if it's actually stated that there are no female druids.
Why? And why do we... Why? Why does the princess of another, let's assume kingdom, but another place, want to be a druid over a grove which she knows nothing about? Like, the groves, the sap of those trees heal pretty much anything. And the person who's in charge, as doesn't matter what's happening, points this out, and she's like, really? I didn't know that. And it's like, and he went, yeah, that's why we protect these trees. Why did you think they were protecting the trees? Why did you want to give up all parts of your life and cut yourself off from everything you've known to become a druid if you didn't even know why the druids are there?
So okay. I have a theory on that. It's not an actual theory, but this is how it comes across, okay? So you heard how I treated Lila and her beautiful arc in my summary, correct? And the fact...
It's a flat line, not an arc.
Okay, well, regardless, the
like
fact
my
that
heart.
She actually does kind of have an arc, and I think what the arc is that she ran away to be a druid and indulge in all of her whatever life that she wants to lead. That basically it came across like she is this spoiled rich girl who went to join Greenpeace and be a hippie for a little while and find a lesbian lover, but she's not actually going to be a lesbian, don't worry. And then like everything like goes tits up and she's like, oh, well, I guess I go back to my dad now. Like, that's how it came across to me. Like, that's her story arc.
Yeah.
I don't think that was his intention.
That is how it comes across.
Because she
I don't think it was the intention.
She waves off like Brig and like it seemed we got this one instant where maybe he was trying to make it seem like she knew her dad was up to no good, and she was like waving Bragan off like don't come near, this might not be good. And then from there on she has absolutely no reaction to anything.
Yeah. She gets so whenever the grove is being attacked, then she gets upset that it is being attacked and her father hasn't rescued her already.
True.
Like, the attack has not been going on very long. They had time to climb a tree, and the tree hasn't even caught fire as they're trying to burn it. They did burn the ladder, but it was only attached to a tree, and that's not flammable, so we're good. And so they're just stuck in this tree, and she's just upset that her dad hasn't already saved her in the last 10, 20 minutes. That's our level of spoiled expectation, is what I would like to say about her character. But in reality, look at the author. He probably thinks that's a reasonable amount of time to launch an army to, say, fend off an attack you don't know about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From a different country-ish.
But see, that's what's really funny about this, because it is not malicious. It is just inept. It's like a puppy piddling on the floor. Like, this is
not someone trying to be clever.
No. Well, it's also like, we're just following fantasy tropes. We have a druid. The druid is a girl because druids are girls, because trees are girly or something. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things where it's like we're just kind of following a lot of these tropes, but we don't understand them. We haven't had time to metabolize them. And so we're just kind of throwing them all together, and then they come across as just these like hilariously like I don't even know how to describe it. They're just like, they're satirical almost in how bad they are.
They're tropes of tropes.
Yes.
They're the outer shell of a trope, and you open it up and you have a fortune cookie with no fortune inside.
The fortune is you're gonna be sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you already are sad, so.
It's like when you get a fortune cookie, you don't expect much from the fortune. It's not even probably going to be a fortune. It'll just be some random words. But at least it's there. It's not there in this. There's so much, and maybe this will lead into one of Jess's rant things. There's so much where he just changes what's happening and how people react and how things work based off of whatever he needs at the time. See again the, do I have enough tobacco to smoke, or am I all out? Changes from scene to scene. One of them being that in the beginning, our lovely intro first chapter, our horse is great and is able to be left alone. It wouldn't even scare while hearing all of these monsters screaming because it's used to it, and it responds to a whistle. For the rest of the book, it wanders off immediately always, and we have to find it on foot. We don't even think about whistling.
Yep, all the time.
It is very well trained, and also very not ever trained at all.
All the time. We are looking for this stupid horse. I hate that horse.
And the horse just decides to hang out with Daniel for a while, and then he says, yeah, I'm going to fuck off away from you too.
Yeah, well, to be fair, it's because Daniel drank blood. He actually drank blood.
Oh my
he
God,
wanted to
the
drink
horse
at that time.
assigned such moral value to that, I see.
It did. Yeah, the horse was like, fuck you, dude. Walked off. The horse is the most interesting character.
Said, your red eyes reminded me of my master. Okay, Jess, you want to start us off on something? Or
Yeah, I got some things. Okay. All right, this is a minor thing compared to everything else, but I hated the author's indecision over whether it was a hand cannon or a pistol. It's like they'd already called it a hand cannon, and then he's like, so what's this thing called? And they're like, oh, it's a pistol. And now it's just interchangeably a pistol or a hand cannon. It just depends on how he's feeling in that moment.
Kind of like deer and elk. Those are interchangeable.
Yeah. Trying to start with some of the more minor things before we get into bigger stuff. On his writing style, I thought it was so annoying that I think this is a very common problem in newer writers, but he would show something and then he would sum it up by a really dumb way of telling about it. As an example, early in the book, the mother comes to get the father's help about Bragan being in prison, and we do all the showing about how disgusted she is about the living situation, like all the typical like wrinkling her nose, not wanting to touch stuff, and then at the end it was like she was very disgusted by this living situation. And I was like, that's great, buddy. Okay. Why is Febreze seemingly the only one in Prosperwood who's buying off the Argentwald vampires? And why isn't this questioned? And that's the second half of most of my gripes is, and why isn't this questioned? Like, there's a lot of things you can forgive if anybody in the book is just like, hey, what's going on? And somebody just refuses to answer, but they don't even ask.
So on that note, what I love so much is we need 3 more jars of blood so that we can stave off a vampire attack and save the town. But we don't tell anyone. Mm-hmm. Anyone else could have given the next 3 jars. Anyone. But we don't say, hey, you owe me one because of all of the whatever I've done in the past that's apparently impressive. Just take 3 jars of blood by Friday and set it on this path and walk away. Do that for me. Leave it to your nephew. Don't have him travel with you, which never comes in handy for no reason. Leave him to do it. He follows commands unquestioningly. You know what's at stake, and you were like, oopsie doopsie.
Yeah. And don't they say that Argentwald is also the one in charge of the prison? The prison that's like across the continent?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
And so it's
Hope that helps.
So it seems like maybe it's supposed to be like the vampires are just looking for an excuse to get mad and invade this town, but like based on all the evidence, which is, practically none in this book, Febreze is literally the only one who knew that they were bargaining with the vampires with blood. So they could have just attacked at any time.
We also have a Lord Argentwald in this manor that's right next to Prosperwood, and literally no one else is aware that there are vampires. No one.
Yeah. And that's honestly, one of my biggest gripes of the book is the vampires, they're not properly handled. They're not questioned. They are not sustainable. Like, I'm including I liked how you called them the World War Z vampires, because holy fuck, that's what they were.
Yeah. It literally ripped a scene out of World War Z where the zombies were piling up against the wall and eventually got over the wall because they just piled up so many dead ones on top of each other. That's literally what they did at the fort.
Light bulb moment. When did World War Z come out? Because that might be when he wrote this.
Let's check, shall we?
2013.
Oh, that does feel like about the right time.
He just saw World War Z, was really excited, wrote this book, put it in a closet, and years later...
So a small gripe off of what you're griping about. So small in the span of things. But their naming of things, how it's introduced to you. So the vampires are not called vampires.
Of course.
They are called fiends.
And the white-skinned people.
Mm-hmm. Fiends and ferals for the ones that have kind of lost control. And whenever we meet these as Riss and we're with the Arsonist and we're like, yeah, those crazy beasts. And this goes for anything that gets a name in this book. Anything at all. And then the Arsonist, or whoever, but in this case the Arsonist turns and is like, they're called fiends. As though Riss is dumb for not knowing a name that the Arsonist made up.
Yeah.
And you know the Arsonist made it up because later on down the line, his lover, who's a fiend, Saranda, uses the word feral to describe the other ones. And they're like, what do you mean? They're called the Awakening or whatever it was, the Maddening. That's what the vampires call it when you devolve. And she's like, oh, haha, maybe I just had a slip of the tongue. Silly me, I'm just a woman.
I just picked that up from someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's clear that he just made it up, but they treat you like you're an idiot for not knowing the term that for a thing that you've never seen before and that you made up the word for. And that is constantly in dialogue how they say, this is what the word for it is, you idiot.
Yeah. To be fair, though, that's just because the Arsonist is like a stereotypical edgelord. Here's the thing. This was my favorite moment of the entire thing, is that his dad told Brigand to look for a dude with red eyes who's brooding. And then Brigand repeats this to the Arsonist later. And he's all like, broody? What? Like, I can't believe somebody would say this about me. And then literally after that, I think there are 10 instances through the rest of the book where he is literally described as brooding. Literally described as brooding with the word brooding.
Near the brooding bridge.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure everybody else knew that.
All right. I have 2 more little pet peeves. And then I think it might be time to move on to the prison. Okay. So my 2 more little pet peeves. One is that in the beginning of the book, the Arsonist comes back to his pet wolf that he kept locked in the cellar of the cathedral with dinner, but without water. He locked him away from his water for almost 2 days. This person has clearly never owned a pet, at least not as of when they wrote this book. And then my other thing was when they found the living weapon in the cathedral, Reese is like, I don't know. It was so weird because it was like, it was as if it were going to be an unknown living weapon because all of them are supposed to be accounted for. But then they open it and Reese is immediately like, "Ah, yes, this is whatever its name is, X living weapon." And I was like, "Bro, what?"
It's so funny too, because the whole thing of him being like, I guess I'm going to teach on living weapons at the very beginning in his intro chapter is like the saddest attempt at foreshadowing I think I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
But it was an attempt.
Okay, I am out of little gripes.
Before we go to the prison, I have 2 more little gripes. And by little, I mean gripes. First, and this is common in authors who don't know how to write dialogue, because they think that if a character knows something, then that's what the character would say because they do know it. And so it's proof that that's what the character knows. That's not how humans work. Humans don't just tell all of the truth all the time. But they do in this book, and without consequence. To the point that the arsonist, he's a wanted felon for arsony, casually tells strangers where he gets his weapons and ammunition and from whom. Like, here's the building and the people who supply me with the ammunition and weapons that I have, that I can't get the ammunition and weapons anywhere else. As though it wouldn't be a crime just to sell them to him. People could just stake out this place and then they'll find you. People could take out these people and then you have no weapons anymore and then you get caught. Like, don't tell people where you get your illegal weapons. Doesn't matter, never comes into play, but that level of truth-telling, it makes them feel so two-dimensional and paper-thin, just like why would you say that, ever? And then, I hate this. I hate it. I hate it. I hate this whenever authors make it so that they're very clear that our protagonist is not in the wrong. We see an instance of this with Daniel, where he kills someone and they thank him as he is murdering them because of reasons. We don't know what's going on in their life. They just said thank you.
Yep.
As you do, as you're getting your throat ripped out. But the arsonist says he is wanted for a crime he didn't commit. This crime is that burning down a school building with children inside and the children die. He didn't do that. And he's so angry that he goes by the arsonist and tells people his name is Arsonist because that's what the government or whoever puts out these bounties, it's really unclear, decided that that's who he was. And so that's who he'll be. And he won't even use his own name because he's angry. He got blamed for this crime. As though he doesn't go around constantly committing arson. Maybe you're not a murdering arsonist, but you're an arsonist. Like, you're committing a bunch of other crimes that you did and you're doing on page, even. You're not the good guy.
But he is the good guy.
You're an arsonist. You're an arsonist.
He's the good guy, though.
He's so mad that they want him for a crime that he didn't commit, and he goes over all the crimes he did commit. Like, even if they marked that off your record, you're still wanted.
He burnt down a lot of things, which, to be fair, that was the one thing I enjoyed. I liked that basically every dispute he had ended in him burning everything down. I have to give it a little bit of credit. It scratched the stupidest itch. I thought it was funny.
It would have been nice if he had been like, oof, yeah, arsony. He's like, it fits. It was whenever he tried to go against it and be like, but that's not who I really am. It's just the title foisted upon me. No, I think we have a lot of proof that that's who you really are.
You know what would have been really funny with a character like this? And it's one of those things, like, this story is so campy that it needed actual humor in it. But what would have been really, really funny is if he was like, I am not the arsonist, and like was just like, my name is Alaric, I am not the arsonist, and like just push back, and everyone else just calls him the arsonist because literally every single time he gets into a scrape, he burns everything down on accident. And that would have been hilarious. And it's just like every single time he's like, no. Yeah. And then he ends up doing the same thing over and over and over again. And so then everyone just, because that would be funny. I would have laughed.
Yeah. Either super, super nonsensically coincidental arsony, or if he just happens to be in the area every time. Yeah. And he's not even the one burning them down, but everyone blames him because he's always
and because he always wears that
hilarious.
Dumb mask for no reason. Like, always. Like, the point of a mask is to, like, hide your identity. But if all you ever do is wear the mask, it becomes really obvious who you are.
Occasionally he took it off.
And he does it because he hates his face, which looks exactly like Riss's face. We don't know why he hates his face. He looks fine.
I like that we each pronounced that guy's name differently. Sarah said Rice. You said Riss. I pronounced it Reese the whole time.
Okay. Wow, that's the RHYS guy.
Yeah, rice and Febreze, 2 groceries.
Fair enough.
If you have Febreze on your grocery list,
Sometimes.
there's something wrong.
What?
But that explains a lot about you.
Shut up.
So the prison.
The prison.
In my notes, I have it bolded and italicized as the fucking prison. Yep. What about you guys?
I didn't even feel the need to take notes because it was all so dumb that I couldn't possibly forget. Like, I have notes about all kinds of other little things, but I was like, the prison was the highlight of the dumb fuckery of this book.
Can I just give an overview of the prison for people, and then we can talk about it?
Do it.
Please do.
All right. At this prison, for an entire day, you make a choice at the beginning of the day. You can either work on a ship, building a ship all day with no food for the entire day, or be whipped bloody and get to eat for 10 minutes. You get to be whipped bloody all day and eat some, or you get to work on a ship all day and have no food, because that's great for blood production. You have to bathe in an ocean that immediately turns you blue for how cold it is, and it's infested by sharks that can smell blood from miles away. This is supposed to be a threat because if you do something and try and run, then they'll shoot you with an arrow and then you'll bleed in the water, as though you're not all bleeding from being whipped bloody, because you do have to eat at some point. So that's cool. There are no instructions or guidance for building this ship.
They just all know how.
People do not work together. No one is overseeing them. Everyone just grabs some nails and some planks and builds a ship together. Because that's what that's how even people who know how to build ships build them.
Yes.
Just randomly coming in and working as you please. Bregan, who's our young, I hesitate to say protagonist, but protagonist here. He meets his uncle, whom he doesn't remember by accident, again, and then promptly forgets about him when the guy that he was with when he got captured gets thrown in prison too, Vidi. Vidi protects him instead of his uncle, for reasons, even though his uncle is super high up in all things. Neither of them interacting, Vidi and his uncle, Alaric, even though they're apparently part of the same pirate crew. Vidi doesn't comfort Bregan emotionally because he doesn't want to be seen as weak or effeminate by the other cellmates. But he does rip off the arms of his jumpsuit and wrap those around Bregan's feet while Bregan sleeps, ostensibly to help protect the wounds, but in reality just to trap all the blood and dirt and bacteria inside. And this is an act of defiance against the guards, who also don't want prisoners caring for one another, and luckily the other cellmates definitely wouldn't see that as a much more blatant act of mothering, or as weak, effeminate, or just an opening for them to use this super easy target against him. They are then rescued by the pirate crew, which Vidi expected because his crew wouldn't leave him behind, but coincidentally, it's actually because Bregan's uncle had set it up for himself to be rescued on a particular date before either Bregan or Vidi got captured in the first place. It's Vidi, not his uncle, who tells the pirates to save Bregan, but it's the sight of his uncle at the end that makes him feel all warm inside after he's rescued. And that's all my feelings in a tone.
Jess, what are your feelings?
Well, all of that. I was just so mad at the idea that they would take this 16-year-old kid who was just like working in a restaurant in town and be like, your blood smells good. We're going to take you to prison for life. You know, implied that they would just drain him right there if they could. But then Lord Argentwald would get mad at them as if they couldn't just like hide the body. It's not like anyone noticed that Bregan was missing anyways, except for his mother who ran off to like the other side of the continent to tell his dad.
And Argentwald never checks in on that, so it definitely would have gone unnoticed.
Yeah. So
but also, it's weird how, like, I'm just going to throw this out there. I thought it was really weird how kind of, like, sexualized Bregan was. It was like the vampires are like, you smell and look delicious. And then he goes to prison and is almost, like, cuddled to death.
We'll call it that.
And it's just like... and it's just this kind of constant thing with him until, like, he just becomes a nothing and dies. Like... But that's literally like half the book that he's on page. He's being like lusted after by people. It's very weird because he is like the only underage character.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also while they're in the prison, the On the day of the escape, we wake up and all of the cells are just empty because there's a pirate attack and people are taking advantage of it. But it's only Vidi and Bregan exiting this empty cell that makes the guards go, quick! They're trying to make a run for it. Where are all the other prisoners? The only other prisoner we see is as we're stuck on the beach.
The rapist.
The rapist or would-be rapist comes by and threatens to, do whatever rapists do. And then he gets his head blown off with a cannonball.
And it makes complete sense that he would be there and be like, ha ha, I'm going to be a rapist while they're trying to escape.
It's such a tiny, tiny, tiny thing, but just the wording stuck with me of while they're escaping, Vidi says he needs to find a way out, and then he jumps through the hole in the wall, which we have not spoken of or said exists up to this point. It's just immediately after, I have to find a way out, jumps through the hole in the wall. Like, we don't even look around. Just that's the next thing we do.
The prison is stupid. And it is probably, the reason why it's stupid is because it's the best example in this entire thing of all of the stupid compounded into one thing. It is so nonsensical to read as an adult. It's one of those things where it's like, it's not even the level of the bad guy who, is just unnecessarily cruel to everyone and yet somehow manages to still have followers. It's like, it's not even that level. It's worse somehow. Because it just is,
you just wouldn't survive it. Even if they just wanted to, they would have to just want you to die over the course of a week and a half. That would be the only reason. And granted, wounds don't mean anything in this book. We get whipped half to death and then we just go on and build a ship without an ache or a pain. We mention waking up that our body aches, and we haven't even been here a week. You're starving and bleeding and probably infected. People have trouble moving after just like a small lashing, let alone purposefully whipped bloody for days.
You will get a fever from it. Like, it is traumatic for your body.
Yeah, like moving at all. But they just kind of go on with their lives. So that's something. But I just need you all to know that anytime I imagine this ship, all I see is like a ship that like 6-year-olds would build if they had just a bunch of wood. And where it's like, it maybe has the outline of a ship that someone at one point, like they brought in because they said, we need you to build a ship. But like, otherwise it's just 6 planks were nailed on top of each other and like a bunch of wood is just like hanging down off the side. And like everything is crooked and there are holes in the hull. And it's just because there's no direction. And it's not like these people who are there for life getting whipped all the time and threatened all the time are trying to build a good ship. Like they don't have any reason why they would there's no reward if the ship gets finished. So it's just,
it would have even made more sense.
Like that's all I pictured every time they worked on it. Every time they worked on the ship is just like Bregan taking a plank and then nailing it on top of another plank and then getting a plank and then just adding to that stack. That's what I was imagining.
It would have even made more sense, at least, if they were like, you can either be beaten and stay here and not get food, or you can go and work and then you get food and you don't get beaten. Then it's like, we're incentivizing you to go and work.
Yeah.
And build these ships. But even still, yes, you would need somebody overseeing
or
it.
Just some guidance. They actively de-incentivized people working together. You have to work together to build a ship just because the pieces that you're carrying are so heavy. People have to hold it in place if you're going to be doing this manually so that you can physically hammer it in.
Okay. I think that we have evidenced how thoroughly this book broke us.
Well, and that's the thing, like, I do want to say, so I understand. It's just one of those things, like, like, we're trying to be funny. We're trying to make light of, it really was just kind of a really bad experience. But the thing is, it's like, I don't want this guy to, like, be like, oh, well, I'm just the worst writer in the world and I should never touch anything again.
He's just new. He needs experience.
He needs so much experience. He needs to experience life. He needs to experience writing because the writing itself is just so amateur. And I'm like, I would pull this immediately. Just pull it back. And there might be something here as far as like a fun story somewhere in the guts of it. I don't know if it's worth it. You might have other stories that you're more interested in. Like, it is just immature. It's just immature. And every bit of it breathes with that immaturity. It was a waste of time and money. It doesn't even have the flair of nonsense that you would at least have if you were actually writing it as a 12-year-old. I think that's the one thing that makes it so that I can't actually believe this was written when the author was very, very young, because then you just have ridiculous things going on. And everything is just very, very silly, and it's more fun because of that. But this just doesn't have it. Pull it, restart, and work on your writing. Just let yourself mature. There's no rush. You don't have to rush these things. I think everyone acts like you got to be out there. You got to push everything immediately. And I understand the desire, but a part of maturing is realizing that you can't do everything all at once, and you're not good at everything right away, and you need to grow. You need to mature. And that's kind of one of those things. There's not even any actual literary criticism that we can do about this book, because there's just nothing there. No real characters, no real plot, nothing to salvage, really. And so that's just why it's okay, well, it's kind of, that's why it sort of turned into just a roast, because there's just nothing.
When I think of this book, and this is more genuine than I would like to be, it makes me feel like I found a used condom in my broker. I wanted not to read this book. I hyperfixate on things. I finished The Black Crown in 3 days. That wasn't good. I hyperfixate. I read quickly even without hyperfixating. This took me a week to get through. It's not long. It just is insipid. There's so much written down that's stating things that do happen and don't happen, and I keep going back. And it's technically a small point, but also for me this is one of the largest points. The fact that they say, I don't have any money to even eat, and then they do one job, and then they go, okay, now I have enough money specifically to pay for some ammunition and a new weapon that I ordered. And then we presumably spent all of our money because we handed over what we got from that job, except now we're paying for lunch, but we don't actually get that lunch, and we don't actually end up it's just like a coin out of a pouch of coins. And then the next thing we know, we are broke again, even though we haven't spent anything or lost anything. When we go, oh man, I really need to go back to this town to get tobacco because I'm out. And then we're smoking a pipe. And then we're out of tobacco, but then we're smoking a pipe, and we never got more tobacco. That is so frustrating as a reader and as an author, because if there's no consistency in the book, how do we know what's real? How can we get any sense of, oh, that was a cool twist, or oh, that was a betrayal, or oh, this is what the world building is supposed to look like, because there are 4 versions of the world building in this, and they conflict with each other. And so I walk out of this book and go, I have no idea what he intended, because there are so many conflicts in this that maybe the prison had a bunch of sharks around it that smell blood, except then all of the people would have died. So maybe there aren't the sharks, or maybe they don't smell blood. Maybe we are bad with money and we immediately spend it, or maybe we got so much from the job that we're doing just fine. How the characters are progressing through the story means nothing, because all of the details just get washed away for whatever happens in the next scene. And then it leaves you with nothing. There's no way to take in the story, because none of it, you can't trust that what you just read will be what happened when you read the next chapter.
And that's a fair problem.
So I think we've gone over plot and pacing.
And characters.
And what drew us in and what took us out. I think we've definitely said what took us out.
I guess that means we can probably move on to discussing the end.
Well, we have our usual question, which I think I know the answer, but I could be wrong.
First, let me say the thing. Not with a bang, but with a... What is it this time?
Well, before that is, did you enjoy it?
Oh,
I think
I thought we'd answered
I
that
thought
to
we
start
answered
with.
that.
And would you recommend it to others?
No.
No, not even a 12-year-old boy.
No. I mean, it's not even a hate read.
No. So did the end make sense?
No.
No. I'm usually the one that says, by the logic of the book, in all technicality, these things would come together to make sense, but not this time.
It literally felt like Briggan turned into this like totem that was passed around to make certain things happen in the climax. It was the weirdest thing because he literally just showed up in a bunch of different spots and then it was like, oh, he went to go poop or something and now he's over by them at the concert hall. And it's just like one of those things where you're like, how? And I thought I was just like rushing through it or something like that. And so I was just missing things. And then when I went back and did my summary, I was like, no, he just is kind of there. And Lila just happened to have him. And then it's like, oh, we stuffed him over there and now he's over here. And it's just like, it was the weirdest thing. But that literally was his only function as a character in the end, was to almost be molested multiple times and then also to be passed around at the end and then killed off. It was so weird.
And I hate a lot of this book, I guess. But I hate the hot air balloon because A, it's also bought from the people who made the gun because any invention ever comes from these brothers. Brother by the end. But the hot air balloon is just up and running all the time. Like they never deflated. It's just there constantly. And that's what we're going to use for an escape in a chase. You know how long hot air balloons take to get off the ground? You know how slow hot air balloons are? You know how easy hot air balloons are to get to stop flying if you want them back on the ground and you happen to have, I don't know, a bow and arrow, or maybe even, and this is a stretch in this book, but a bow and arrow made of magic light that can just shoot anything from a long distance. Maybe if we had one of those, it'd be pretty easy to take down. But no, we will do our rough and tumble, running away in a giant chase. Everyone is after us and knows that we are the final enemies, because I guess the rest of the town died in the symphony hall maybe, in a hot air balloon.
We sacrificed so much for that hot air balloon too. That's the worst part. We sacrificed so much to make sure that the hot air balloon was our end escape method.
So the arsonist gets told, no, it only has, I can only carry 4 adults, 5 including myself being the driver. And the arsonist doesn't immediately bring this up to his group of like 8 or 9 people. And that told me that we will whittle our group down by the end of it just naturally so that there are only 4 people left. Because it was never an issue. It was never brought up. Later on, there's a line in there, thrown in there, where it's like, oh, the person who drives the hot air balloon said, I mean, I guess because it's a dire situation, maybe we can ignore the weight limit, as though that's how weight limits work for something that is flying in the air. But since it was never a point of discussion, it was never even something where it's like, no, I'll die and leave them here because everyone is a martyr in this book. No, you go, Briggan. No, you go, Father. Whatever. Instead, they're just knowing that there is only room for 4 extra people aside from the driver. They're going to go rescue some more people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I did literally love it though, because there was this, again, it was an attempt. It was an attempt. Because earlier, Rice and the arsonist are squabbling over who gets the sword. The sword that their father told him to go find.
The sword that possesses your body and gives you a ton of skill, by the way.
Yeah. You go swipe.
It just fights for you.
And blah, 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 blah. So, to destroy the werewolf, the arsonist requests this sword from Rice. And then Rice is all like, I guess I'll give it to you after all, and laughs about it. And there's this moment of mirth. And this is literally like a minute after Briggan has just been like taken down by this werewolf, like in front of Rice. And also Rice was the reason why he died, because he was like, Briggan, stop running. And he stopped running. And then instantly got mauled to death, which was hilarious. I loved it.
And Riss knew, like, he it's not that he was like, stop running, come back, or like, stop running because I want to catch up to you. I don't know that there's a werewolf about. He's watching the werewolf actively stalking Bregan and tells Bregan to stop.
Stop so it can get you. There's too much weight for the balloon.
And Bregan was just running toward the balloon. Like, he's running to the exit and you want him to slow down.
Yeah, but you know what's really funny about that? Bregan is in the balloon. Dead at the end.
Yeah, I don't know who carried him there. I don't know. He's with his dad crying over him by the end.
Yep. But anyway, yeah, so we have this hilarious moment right after that happened, and they're started to laugh, but his transient happiness was interrupted by an abrupt cough that forcefully arrived in his throat. Fuck me, I hate that line. Sorry, I shouldn't have read it.
That's a good example of why we all hate the book, though. That the syntax is hurtful.
Yeah, I shouldn't have read it. I shouldn't. I'm trying not to look at things because I'm trying to be charitable.
But yeah, so all of the dads are really good dads, even when they're absent, because they love their sons so much. And all of the moms are technically good moms, but they died when the sons were young, so I guess we'll never really know. And I think that sums up the book for me. We love our dad. Dads are great. Moms are great when they're dead.
It was a climax that didn't do. It was contrived to the point of absurdity. That's the reason why Jack is saying that it doesn't even make sense within the logic of the book, because the reasons why it happens are so stupid and nonsensical that it literally just is like, and now we need a climax, so here's a climax, guys. And that's it. That's literally how it feels to read it. It's like, and now this thing's gonna happen. Here we go.
For those of you who do read this book, bless your hearts, this is a good example of why climaxes are not supposed to take up a lot of room also. Because this climax lasts for so long with so many little skirmishes that it's unclear. It was unclear to me that I was in the climax until I realized there were only like 15 pages left. And then I'm like, oh, I guess this is it. Just because we got there and then we stayed there forever, it felt like. Climaxes, I shouldn't question whether or not we're currently at the climax. It should be intense. It should be brief. It should be clear that this is our final showdown. And instead it was more things happening. And maybe it would lead somewhere, and maybe it wouldn't. We'll find out. But there aren't many pages left, so I guess probably it will. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. Make it very clear. Make it very quick. You have an entire book to build up to the climax. The climax itself should not stretch.
It's chapters 34 through 40, and 40 is the last chapter, so it runs straight to the end. And there's about 40 pages of climax. Look, I'm gonna make the sex joke. Look, if you were climaxing for fucking 40 pages, it would not be very fun. I'm just saying.
Yeah, real sensitive. But in that spirit, you would be begging for it to stop, and I was.
Yeah. I mean, I guess in that way it is a good analogy.
Does this make you want to read more from this author?
No.
No. But honestly, I don't even see the author in this. This is any teenager. Because it's like it hasn't even gotten to the point where the author is present yet.
The author doesn't have a voice. They're just writing the same way that all younger, and I say younger, but I just mean people who haven't gone through that ego-crushing stage yet, people who haven't tried to focus on the craft. They're all interchangeable in terms of voice until they get past that point, and this is one of those. Where I've read this same voice from a lot of authors. Could have been any of them.
Yeah. So it doesn't make me specifically dislike this author, but also it doesn't make me, like, I wouldn't pick anything up again specifically either. Like, I'd just be like, yeah, immature, bad stories.
If I knew that it was this author I was being given, I might pay money to not read it.
And Jess is the nice one, so all of that said, is there anything, if the author happens to listen to this, which we have not said, which you want to tell them that could help them?
Pull it back. Take your frickin' time. Don't plan to publish anything for 15 years and write for all 15 of those years every day. I'm not even kidding. And read your own shit. I can tell you didn't read this. So read it. If we have to, you have to. And just piece it together in your mind. Is this really what you wanted? Because it's not. And why did you publish that?
I would definitely agree with just read your own work. It's always clear whenever authors don't read their own work, mostly, commonly typos, but mostly because of that level of things that conflict within the story, sometimes within the same paragraph. Or maybe you were doing stream of conscious, but that's not what people want to read. It doesn't make any sense. And before you publish your next one, get strangers to read it and find people who, more strangers than not, within your target audience, enjoy the book. Don't ask your family, don't ask your friends. Get people who are not reading it for some social clout for you to say, yeah, I loved this story. Yeah, this writing was good. Yeah, this kept me going. And write a bunch of fan fiction, I think. Yeah. Because you seem like this feels like fan fiction. I started off thinking that this was just a Witcher fan fiction, and honestly, I'm not convinced it's not. Fan fiction is great. It's a fantastic place to build community. It's a fantastic place to put up whatever you want. Maybe you finish it, maybe you don't, but you get immediate feedback as to like, this makes sense, or this doesn't make sense, or like, this hit people a lot better than the other thing that I was writing and must have gotten better. And it also just, it gives you that dopamine hit whenever you publish, and you can see immediately what works. You can get practice constantly, even if you quit. Go write if you need to publish, if you need that feedback. Go write somewhere that it's not expected that it will be professional, that you're not expected to have read it before you hit publish, where it just forces you to practice. Mm-hmm. That's going to help you so much.
I think people undervalue fan fiction. It can be a great place to learn.
All right, Jess, bring us home.
I guess if writing is what you enjoy, don't give up hope because of negative feedback. Just take that as your incentive to get better. There are so many ways to get better, but please do try to get better.
Yeah. One of the best parts of writing is that you will always have somewhere to improve. You can send in the same manuscript 50 times and get 50 ways to make it better, because every time you make it better, you can get better than that, and that's awesome. So this is a lot of ways to get better.
Well, this has been Over the Fourth Wall. We're not picking a next book because this is the last one we are recording for this season. And it's been enough of a disaster. I'm picking the next book myself. And it's going to be a good one because I don't want this to also... I'm just saying. I don't want this to be like we're shitting on indie and we just keep picking up books that are not that good. So we're going to pick up a good one this next time. I will make sure of that. But yeah, for now, thank you all for listening. Please remember to like and subscribe. If you would like to submit a first chapter for Edit Like You Mean It, or if you want us to take a look at your full manuscript, we will actually do a full professional developmental edit for you, as long as you are okay with us airing it in public, which with the way we edit, trust me, it will not matter if everyone knows the twists and turns of your current draft. So if you want to submit anything for that, or if you would like us to take a look at your independently published work, you can submit that. The information is in the description below. But for now, farewell.